As people ride down Saladi's Avenue, lined with ancient oaks and flowering shrubs, they pass the time talking about the kingdom of Grandale. People say they can summon heroes from another world with special powers to fight the Dark Lord. The event really happened about a month ago, and since then the whole town has been talking about it, with everyone guessing who the mysterious heroes are and whether they can defeat the ancient evil. The girl riding in the back of the carriage grew noticeably livelier. They appeared to be the very heroes so often written about in ancient legends. Her eyes shone with delight as she listened to the travelers' conversations. She was not wrong. Legends say some of them have two special abilities. Perhaps they all possess incredible skills. Ancient manuscripts say a lot about them. There was no doubt that under those conditions they would instantly defeat the Dark Lord. When the war begins, ordinary merchants will get their share of the profits. The traders were already eager for lucrative deals, rubbing their hands in anticipation. True heroes, Tina was captivated by storytellers' tales, imagining mighty warriors who defeated enemies with a single move and noble knights ready to sacrifice themselves for justice. In her dreams, Tina pictured a queen who, in a passionate speech about the importance of compassion, inspires young people and turns boys into real heroes. Tina was sure that with such defenders, the kingdom had nothing to fear. She longed to meet someone like that at least once. That sincere belief that her dream would surely come true gave her the strength to keep going even when life felt gray and ordinary. Ms. Tina thought how wonderful it was that anyone in this world could see their abilities in the skills matrix. People once could not imagine what they were truly capable of. Among those interested, some have come from far away and already want to be the first to try this odd feature, hoping to discover something unusual about themselves, their eyes shining with anticipation. Many young lives are broken by harsh reality, and many hopes turn to dust when the truth comes out. Not all expectations come true. Only those who truly deserve it become real heroes. Not long ago, Akino's Canada was just a regular high school student. He had no special talents and no striking looks, just another teenager in the crowd. Each morning, like everyone else, he washed, had breakfast, and got ready for school. On his way to school, he politely greeted the neighbors like a well-mannered boy. A month had passed since the high school students were transported to a world with the kingdom of Grandale, and at first it felt like a nightmare, but over time, they grew used to the grand castles and green hills. Nothing notable has happened since the summoning. The Dark Lord is still alive and continues his work. This worries both the people of the kingdom and those who were summoned. Tamaki Saki called Kanada. She asked if he could make more varied flavors of onigiri, since they were all the same. He looked at her, displeased. Once a class monitor, she looks very modest, and you would not guess she could be a real assassin, but in battle she becomes a swift, unseen shadow that moves instantly among enemies. Suddenly the girls gathered around him and complained that there were no manga or magazines here. In their world, they got a fresh batch to read every week. He was flustered and asked them to tone down their emotions a little. Calmly, he said his shop only sells bottles of tea and that he has kettlebells, yet he doesn't know how to grow his business or improve his skills. Wait a bit, then one of the girls called him rude. He was tired of always hearing everyone make fun of his skill. His workshop had electricity, air conditioning, and lights. The bathroom even had toilet paper and a flush tank. A work computer was also here for placing orders. With that knowledge, the young man felt more confident. Today, that skill is valuable even when product choices are limited. Sometimes locals come into the shop and trade their belongings for goods from this world, and they always marvel at the local wisdom, while Akano Sikinata gladly offers them something new. People sometimes bring him exotic fruits, so he has no trouble surviving. As he chewed an apple, someone knocked on the door again. The shop owner was used to the bell on the door that meant someone had come. Kajima Shinji, Taylor, and Kawasaki Ryo often visit the ordinary people in the third group and call them now and then, and they all like the local conditions, especially the bathroom. This time, when they looked inside, they found Tamaki lying on a futon in the middle of the store, and when they asked her what was happening, she said she simply felt comfortable that way, and no one could understand why anyone would choose such a strange place to rest. The shop owner told Kawasaki to leave and not to brag here. Ryo rushed to apologize and make excuses, his face turning bright red. Seeing all this, he probably thought how noisy they were. Needing calm and focus, he wasn't judging anyone now, and the main thing was to find balance in everything. One moment you're sitting in class, the next you're in a completely unfamiliar place. Welcome, heroes. Prusai, ruler of the eastern kingdom of Great Elu, that day made Akinosai see the nature of the new world, and he realized the new kingdom offered him great opportunities, but required his full commitment. In this world there is a being called the Dark Lord, seen as a demon king or similar creature, who created the monsters that caused great harm in the world. 2 of the 7 states on the continent have already been destroyed by the treacherous Dark Lord and his monsters. To end the crisis, Grandale performed a ritual to summon heroes from another world he learned about in ancient manuscripts. The secret knowledge that had lain unused for centuries in the dusty books of the Royal Library finally proved useful. Everyone knows what that led to. All 31 students from their class were here, gathered together for a serious matter. Some pressed close to friends in fear, others looked around the unfamiliar walls with curiosity, while a few were already trying to figure out what was happening. Honestly, the people of this world were surprised too. They usually summoned 3 or 4 heroes, but this time many more showed up. Kuramachi Yudo, the local top student with attractive looks, decided to break the silence. She needed to learn something important from the ruler. Kanata found him very unpleasant. He reminded her they were just students. Then he asked whether she would grant one student's wish to return to the old world without fighting the Dark Lord. The queen said they couldn't afford it. Tamaki asked why, and the queen looked confused and even a little frightened. Something dark and dangerous lay behind that decision, and the village head's voice even trembled. The ruler said they did not have enough magic to reopen the portal. That power could be gained by defeating the Dark Lord, and then they might be able to bring them back with the right spell. They still could not grasp that to return home they had to defeat this lord. He was not just a powerful enemy. He had become a real wall between them and family life. There was nowhere left to retreat. Karamatotsi did not stop and asked another question. Persistent enough to stare down the queen herself, he always behaved very rudely. He reminded them they were ordinary people, and it was hard to see how they could defeat the Dark Lord, before whom even the world's bravest warriors had been powerless, but the queen assured them there was no need to worry. They received special powers that residents of the old world cannot have. The texts describe heroes with unique abilities that make the Dark Lord vulnerable. She said they could see their abilities by simply checking their status. After that, Akino Sakinata wanted to find out what abilities he had. A system window appears saying the hero's status is being checked and his abilities are being confirmed. In the end, nothing came of it and no shop opened. He had dreamed of cool martial arts or at least magic and wanted a whole harem of elves, cat girls, and fairies, but he didn't get lucky. The day after the summons to the royal palace, the full hero training program began. The first task was to choose abilities to fight the Dark Lord. Kuramachi Yudo, the main character, was often bothered by his companion Akino's Kanata, and he gained 2 special powers: immortality that lets him revive up to 5 times, and a goddess's gift of mastery over all magic and extra protection. He couldn't see it as unfair. Moreover, Karamaki leads the first major team that can confront the Dark Lord directly. The team includes Kanamori-jun, a water mage, Kanai Miyoka, a healer, Savano Ludi, an archer, Yukisaki, a swordsman, Natori Mitsuki, a shield mage, Mindsuki Yuhai, a spearman, Kirishima Masaki, an ice mage, and Tamaki Saki, an assassin. The second squad and reservists from the first group replaced the wounded. The third unit Canada joined was declared unfit for combat. He was, of course, thrilled. Even his friend Sujita Yuki, who uses fire magic, made the main squad. The protagonist kept telling himself he was not jealous, but no matter how hard he tried to hide it, envy like poison slowly ate away at his confidence. 1 month after the intake, starting with the third squad, more recruits who couldn't handle the hard training and unfamiliar new life began drifting to Kanata's shop, and serious talks slowly turned into conversations about onigiri. That gave him little hope. The main character kept thinking about when he would have the chance to defeat the Dark Lord and whether he could manage him at all. Then Tamaki Saki noticed his sad face and realized something was wrong. Instantly rushing to the hero to see what had happened, she startled him with her intense concern, and her sincere care made him feel ashamed of being so closed off. Feeling embarrassed, the hero said everyone has important thoughts, even him. They did not come to his mind often, but they always left a noticeable mark. It seemed odd to see her here with her companions, the guests from the first squad, and it felt like either a challenge or a bold experiment of fate, at least to him. Tamaki replied calmly. She came because the place had air conditioning and a restroom with running water, which was very convenient. The shop owner, however, firmly asked her not to sit on the table. The girl continued, "I really don't want to go back there. Not everyone wants to seriously fight the Dark Lord. It's one thing to listen to legends by the campfire, and another to face real evil, and no people expect a true act of heroism from you. Everyone thinks so, even Akinos. Akinos believes most people are not at all happy with what's happening." The girl nicknamed Assassin agreed as well, saying few people like it. Tamaki said she was not at all interested in defeating the Dark Lord. The hero asked again to see if it was a joke, but her expression made it clear she was completely serious. Maybe she was just very tired. If the first team she joins fails to beat him, they'll all be trapped here forever. Waiting on the sidelines is not an option. This isn't just talk. Each of them carries an unseen duty. They must win. The girl replied that everything would be fine because they could all handle it, then added that she would protect Kanato, which wounded his pride and made him feel useless. She smiled at her own words and said nothing, and her smile was so warm and genuine that for a moment all worries vanished. Tamaki Saki waved goodbye to her friends and went to her room. Kanata sighed with relief. Once everyone had left, the place grew quiet. He thought about leaving the door open until they all returned. All the chores were done, so there was nothing left to do. Kanamori appeared out of nowhere. It seems one of their squad members is missing, Minazuki Yo, known as the Spearman. He really comes here often. Hiramoti said he was very worried that the boy had missed practice again, and the suspect looked taken aback, his face paling as his eyes darted side to side. He urgently needed an excuse for being absent. Apologizing, he said he felt sick and had gone to rest in a shop because the air conditioning was on. Kanata was put off by how formal he sounded. Kanamori Green smirked to himself and said he understood everything. A sly grin curved his lips and a wicked gleam flashed in his eyes. He was up to something. A sneer crossed his face. This is where the third squad's heroes gather. They use the shop as a place to rest and support each other, to feel that they still matter. Smiling, he added that it was a fitting place for the useless. The water mage went on, saying there was almost nothing left here and soon everything would be overgrown with grass, but 3 people immediately objected, asking who he thought he was and insisting that an ordinary otaku should not get arrogant just because he gained a powerful skill. Minadzuki stepped in, visibly nervous as the conflict escalated, and told them not to be rude to those 2, while the trembling of his hands and voice showed he was upset for some reason. A wave of water suddenly swept over everyone in the store. No one expected it, not even Kinos. Streams of water shot from every side, as if an invisible archer controlled this force. Nobody knew what it was or what had happened. A man had hidden behind the register to avoid becoming the next victim, and Kanamori stood calmly watching, as if he enjoyed the chaos he had just caused. There was so much water that not only the heroes floated, but everything that had been neatly on the shelves rose up too, and the water seemed able to pull everything under, while no one knew how long this magical flood would last or how to avoid its effects. So this must be his special ability. He knew he was strong, but he did not expect it to be so extreme. He begged the water mage to stop, but the mage did not respond, so caught up in his magic he heard no one. A mere worm had the audacity to challenge Kanamori, a member of the main team, and Kanamori's smile offered no comfort and was chilling as he slowly raised his hand, and the water around him spun even faster. He gave a sinister laugh and was surprised that scoundrels remained scoundrels even in another world, meaning those who had argued with him a few minutes earlier. Amid the roar of water and the terrified cries of classmates, he heard a strangely calm, confident voice, which startled him and made him turn toward the sound. No one expected to survive after his appearance. It couldn't be ignored. Kuramachi Yudo himself had spoken to him. He had something important to tell Kanata, so before the water mage could sweep him away, it was better to pause and listen. As soon as the squad leader stepped forward, Kanamori lowered his hands and the elements obeyed immediately, and now his gaze held a trace of respect and curiosity. As Akinos came to and spat out the water he'd swallowed, the squad commander walked up and said, "Hi," Kanata in a calm voice with a faint smirk. The boy looked up and said he hadn't expected such cruelty from a classmate, even if they hadn't talked in a long time. A month is no reason to behave that way. Kuramoshi's face did not move. The listener wondered what he wanted to say, but Yudo began the conversation businesslike, like Albi brief, his voice unusually serious and almost formal, putting the listener on guard as he both recognized and did not recognize his classmate. It turned out he wanted Canada to leave this city. People had no idea what he was talking about. The leader of the first squad said Canada was causing some weaker people to start losing touch with reality. The problem wasn't just the useless third squad. Even the main squad preferred running to Ignosi's shop over handling anything truly important. Discipline was falling apart, and Yuda no longer knew how to stop this wave of laziness. The young man said he was worried about it too. He had trouble gathering his thoughts, but he understood there was a bitter yet important truth in those words. Yuda continues, to return to their old world, they must defeat the Dark Lord at any cost. To do that, they must unite and act together as one team. He then said Canada's ability was not just useless but harmful, that it distracted the heroes from important tasks, so he should leave town or they would drive him out anyway. Is the shop owner really going to be expelled from the kingdom? To avoid losing the most valuable thing he had at the time, the young man decided to make a deal and told Kuramachi he understood him but needed a little time to think it over. Finding yourself suddenly in a completely unfamiliar world is overwhelming for anyone. Knowing the squad commander, it was pointless to expect his sympathy. He just laughed and said Kanata could think it over, but only until morning. He might have taken pity and given him some money for the road if the man had dropped to his knees and begged. Kanamori gave another sly smile from behind the official. The boy said everything was fine. Yudo kept praising his team because it had only the best heroes. Victory over the Dark Lord was inevitable. The side he called Canada could relax because everything was decided. The shop owner could not let go of the word inevitable. Kuryamachi said he dreamed not only of victory, but also of coming home and saving the modern world with his own hands. Akano looked at him as if he had lost his mind. Facing Kanata, he lays out his wild plans, saying modern society has no freedom of thought, and that, now with incredible powers, he will return as a god and force people to obey him. At that moment the young man realized this man seemed to have lost his mind. His eyes blazed with a wild fire, and a strange smile crossed his face. Now he was even more unpredictable than before. Maybe that was his true nature after all. Above all, he wanted Kanata to leave the town. Kuramati brightened when he realized he had been understood. His thin lips spread into a satisfied smile. Before leaving, he looked down at him and asked him to pray for their victory over the Dark Lord. His voice sounded so certain, as if victory was already his, even though the battle had not yet started. After a while, Kino stood by his shop, pleased that everything had worked out for him. He only had to close and reopen the shop, and then everything would be fine. Tamaki did not understand what he was talking about. After learning that Minazuki and her whole team were in serious trouble, she rushed over, saw the shop nearly destroyed, and asked if Kuramachi really wanted Canada to leave the kingdom of Grandale. This is really low and can't be tolerated. The girl promised she would tell him everything to his face. It seemed she was genuinely worried about what was happening. Surprised, the boy was pleased to hear it, but she was clearly one of the chosen, part of the first team with Kanamori and Kuramoti. That would put her in an awkward position. He didn't want anyone from the first squad dragged into this, and Tamaki Saki was one of them. She replied that in this selected group, everyone has their own level of involvement and that she'd already told him, so he should listen more carefully, but overall everything was fine, and Kanata at first did not even believe it. Kuramachi works the hardest in the hero training program. Also in the program are Water Mage Kanamori, Ice Mage Kirishima, Shield Mage Mitsuki, and Swordsman Saki. Most of the others, including the female assassin, just sit in the palace. Lately many have even stopped going to training because they've lost interest. It turns out only 5 are still active. At first everything was different. Everyone attended lectures diligently, but when the practical monster hunting sessions began, people responded differently. Recently, during a demonstration fight with orcs, Kirishima, an ice mage, fired icy arrows at them and frightened everyone. Kanata said that after the earlier Kanamori incident, this no longer surprises him. She replied that Kanamori was even worse. He enjoyed cruelly torturing and slowly killing his enemies, choosing the most painful methods. No wonder she couldn't stand him. The boy asked her what she thought of that psychopath. Tamaki immediately realized he meant Kuramachi. She knew much more about him than she wanted, but decided to tell everything because the conversation could protect the boy from many problems. At first glance, he seems like an ordinary, hardworking, very successful student who always completes every task without mistakes and never misses training, and people at the palace praise him, but his perfection impresses everyone while something else hides behind that flawless mask. The girl admitted she had always argued with him, and recently everyone had even been a little afraid of him. The hero asked again, as if prompting her to explain in more detail what was going on. The former class rep began by saying that after practice everyone went home safely. Nothing unusual happened, but Kuramachi went straight to the Crusader barracks, and at first Kanata thought he'd imagined it. So Yudo spends every night alone with the handsome Crusaders, and the hero jokes, calling him a chatty fool, then adds to ease the tension that Tamaki's priorities and demeanor are rather odd, which seems to have surprised her. Kuramachi had become the queen's lover, and was already seen as the country's future ruler, so even Minazuki chose not to oppose him. Kanata concluded that Minazuki was clearly afraid of Kuramachi after the recent events. On the other hand, if they were wrong, they could be accused of conspiring against the court favorite and punished harshly. The girl was surprised to find it had become very difficult to talk to the arrogant commander of the first squad. Kanata suspected that Lord Kuramachi was definitely plotting something after his defeat, while Tamaki Saki decided to rest for a bit and was already spreading a blanket on the shop floor. Time passed and only a few hours remained until dawn. It seemed that with that psychopath in power, the hostility between him and Kanata would last forever. After a day of constant worry, the hero could not sleep. He sighed heavily. Akino hoped Tamaki could at least get the leader of the first unit to think twice. Maybe it really was better not to stand in his way. While he thought that, the female assassin was already on her 10th dream. Flaming arrows appeared out of nowhere and slammed into the shop windows with a loud crash. Bright flashes lit the room and badly frightened the hero. A young man rushed to wake his friend. At first, she didn't quite understand what had happened. Canada took her hand and led her confidently deeper into the building, holding her firmly. Half asleep, the girl tried to make sense of what had happened. Her mind felt foggy. He suggested checking the security cameras because they might have recorded the person who tried to interfere. Suddenly, they saw the queen on horseback, escorted by armed guards. They're crusaders, so Magi hid behind her classmate. Her classmate clearly wasn't ready for this. Kanata hadn't expected the head of Grandale to come and deal with him herself. The hero realized she had come to drive him out on Kuramachi's orders. Tamaki didn't buy it. It made no sense for them to complicate things like that. Maybe it was just meant to intimidate, or they expected them to leave on their own. A ringing voice came from afar, echoing down the corridors and making the air tremble. With each second, the sound grew clearer. Queen Grandale Crusade had come to make her arrival known. It turns out the church declared the shop owner a heretic, as if he supported the Dark Lord. I didn't catch everything, but he's been banished from the kingdom for good. That was not all. It was hard to believe he had committed so many terrible crimes in the past month, and it felt absurd that Akinos, who spent almost all his time in the shop, could be such a dangerous criminal. Tamaki defended him, saying he would never do such a thing. That was an outright lie and a gross exaggeration, and sadly everyone saw it as her hiding the truth instead of supporting a friend. The hero, falsely accused more than once, sat with his head bowed over the table. It was clear Kuramachi had simply spread lies to ruin his reputation. This showed how low a person could sink. The queen kept accusing him, not giving him a chance to think, and ordered him to obey immediately and leave the country, or she would burn him and his shop. He couldn't even think about it. If there was no way to avoid this terrible situation, at least Tamaki had to be saved. He pointed to the back door and told her to run before it was too late. The female assassin froze. She said she would never leave him here alone and offered to run away with him, but the criminal replied that people were already hunting him and that staying with him would put her in the same danger. The shop owner said he would simply give up. Luckily, he still had a choice. His words hung in the air like a heavy burden. He looked around his shop, perhaps for the last time. She quietly said again that she didn't want this, her voice trembling like fragile glass about to break, and fear and hesitation showed in her eyes. She lowered her head and blushed slightly, reminding him of her promise to protect him no matter what, tears forming in her eyes, and the class monitor's sudden sensitivity surprised Kanata. Aquanat gently stroked her soft hair and told her not to worry. His warm fingers glided through the silky strands as if he wanted to share his calm with her. He promised that if they managed to escape and meet again, he'll let her use the bathroom. He'll also buy her more seaweed for her guinea pig. All she has to do is obey him. That answer shocked the girl. She sent him away. Eventually, she came to the store every day not for any benefit, but simply because he worked there. The hero ignored what the girl, a killer, was trying to say and pushed her out the door to protect. Kanata replied with a few silly words, promised to pray that their squad would defeat the Dark Lord, and asked her to stay safe until the end. With tears in her eyes, Tamaki confessed she had never met such an odd boy before. She forbade him to die and insisted he remember her promise. Kanata just waved at her, but her words stayed in his head. He stood for a while, staring toward where Tamaki had run. Strange sounds behind him made the boy turn around. Akino told the guards he would not resist. His appearance made it clear he had no weapon. They closed in around the boy, pressing their swords almost to his throat. The blades were razor-sharp, but Kanata stayed outwardly calm while turmoil churned inside him. The queen backed his choice to surrender. For a criminal, it was a decent move. When the hero raised his hands, he saw how sure she was of his guilt. Cruz looked down on him and said they would probably never see each other again. That's probably why she called him worthless without hesitation. The guards kicked him out and he left, not knowing where to go. The door shut hard behind him. Walking on, the boy sank into sad thoughts and replayed everything that had happened. It felt unfair. He kept asking why it had happened to him, whether he was capable of anything at all, and where he had gone wrong. It was already getting dark overhead. He still did not know where to go. The uncertainty annoyed him. Going deeper into the Saladus forest, he noticed it had become completely dark around him. The thick trees had woven together overhead so tightly that no ray of light got through. Leaves rustled underfoot and twigs snapped, adding anxious sounds to every step. It was so dark here that even the fields by his grandmother's house did not seem as gloomy. He looked around fearfully, and an unpleasant chill ran down his spine. It seemed as if the darkness itself had come alive. The hero wants to return to the city right now, but if he's caught, they'll burn him alive because he was banished. At this rate, Kanata will become another fallen hero from their class. At night in the forest, even the slightest rustle of leaves causes fear. Akino kept glancing over his shoulder and listening to every rustle, his heart pounding whenever a branch snapped or an owl hooted, and then he remembered one important thing. Having that ability with the shop meant he could create it anywhere just by thinking, so he tested it by ordering the shop to appear right there and then, and his instincts were correct. Watching the cameras around the store, Kanata saw wild, aggressive animals creeping up on him. Every camera captured the danger getting closer. Their movements were coordinated, and it looked like they were about to attack. This is bad, they are surrounding him. The boy realized the light was definitely attracting them, so he had to turn it off throughout the store as quickly as possible. He looked around and didn't immediately find the switch. Breathing grew harder and his heart raced in his chest. Sweat ran down Kanata's forehead, blurring his vision as he searched frantically. Maybe he was already gone. Akinos realized with horror that he owned a small shop, which meant he had never had to turn off the lights there, and there was no switch anywhere, so he wondered if clapping his hands might turn the lights off. Kanata realized he at least had to barricade the entrances. It was better than doing nothing. Pulling out boxes, he stacked them by the doors to get some protection. A rustling came from nearby. At the sound he turned and saw two predators already inside the building, their yellow eyes glowing like two small lights and saliva dripping from open mouths that highlighted their frightening fangs. All he could do was wait in silence. The creatures looked nothing like ordinary stray dogs or wolves and seemed more like monsters. His mind went blank. If they decided to attack, it would be the end of him. By now he had accepted that they'd eat all the food on the shelves. All Kanata wanted was for them to stay away, but he accidentally dropped something, and it immediately caught their attention. The boy thought it was the end. The wolf-like creatures tensed and began searching for him. They sniffed the air, picking up the slightest scent, and their ears were sharp like radar. Their instinct told them the prey was nearby. The search did not take long, and the young man could already see a strange, terrifying creature racing straight at him, with another running behind it. Time seemed to slow, and each moment lasted an eternity. Fortunately, the door was locked, giving Kanata a moment to decide what to do next. He wasted no time and instantly ran through every possible way to escape. Short on time, he grew very nervous. The first thing he saw was a fire extinguisher sitting there for a fire. Not caring what he used for protection, he was relieved to find it. He pulled the pin from a fire extinguisher, aimed the hose at the unwanted guests, taunted the wolves, and a jet of foam shot from the nozzle into the nearest predator's face. The animals bared their teeth but hesitated to come closer. They clearly did not expect that move. Kanata felt confident again. We must keep doing the same and they will definitely scatter. Suddenly something appeared and no one knew what it was. They were moving through the foam. That was surprising. The fire extinguisher worked for only a few seconds before failing. The guy talked to it like it was alive. It was hard to tell what kind of joke that was. A bit more and he could have died here. Kanata laughed nervously when he realized the fire extinguisher would no longer work on its own. His shoulders trembled and his fingers clenched the empty canister. The laugh bounced off the walls and sounded strangely out of place in the silence. Despair washed over him. He seemed sure he would die here first. That would make him easy prey for the first monsters he met. He could not gather his thoughts. He felt utterly helpless. He exhaled and pressed against the door as hungry wolves, or something like them, scraped at it. A fire extinguisher lay nearby. The crates he had hoped would save him were scattered everywhere. His mother, father, and that mischievous cat, they were probably worried and thinking about him. Images of them came to him one after another. Those memories gave him strength but also tore him apart. He wondered whether Tamaki had managed to escape, immediately pictured her smiling and full of hope as always, feared she might be hurt, and knew he had to survive for his family and for her. If she found out he had died here, she might cry. At their last meeting, her eyes showed concern and perhaps even tenderness. Maybe he was mistaken. These thoughts wouldn't leave him. They weren't that close, yet he kept thinking of her in what might be his final moments. Maybe he felt more than friendship or compassion, or it was only a subconscious defense. Everything seems to have calmed down. The young man checked the cameras and peered past the door to make sure it was safe, and the silence felt unnaturally tense after all that had happened, with not even a rustle. Beyond the door, his shop lay wrecked, with broken windows everywhere, food scattered, and every corner showing signs of uninvited guests who had already fled. It seemed he had survived. Shielding his face from the sun, Kanata figured the monsters feared the morning light. His whole body ached from strain and exhaustion, but the main thing was that he was alive. A message suddenly appeared on the screen announcing that his shop level had increased. The hero didn't expect it and had no idea what caused it. They were not just voices in his head. After such a long day, Kanata could no longer tell what was real and what was not. The rapid chain of events almost overwhelmed him. Conan remembered he could check his status at any time just by thinking about it, so he decided to do it right away. Checking his stats, he realized he had leveled up because he managed to defend the store. That's the point. He also noticed many new changes. So much had been added that he couldn't wait to look through it all. All of that would wait. Kanata collapsed, exhausted, his face pressed against the marble floor of his workshop, and the last hours flashed before his eyes like a kaleidoscope of fights with monsters, escapes, and desperate attempts to survive. The day had been full of events, and the tired shopkeeper just wanted to sleep. Fatigue came in waves, and his thoughts grew hazier and less clear. Soon he got so sleepy, he stopped hearing the hooves at the window or any other worrying sounds, while the shadows along Traveler Tina's path grew thicker. Too early to enjoy the silence, the noise still woke him. Kanata slowly opened his eyes, and anger flared there with real fury. It was already his second sleepless night. Something had happened this time. It seemed unlikely that fighters from Grandales were hunting him again. If they had been, Kanata would have been killed long ago. Yet someone very close was already letting out dying cries. The young man leaned his elbows on the table, thinking it had to be them. The cameras showed nothing, so only one option remained: deal with it himself. Kanata peeked out from behind a tree and saw a carriage nearby with several dark figures around it, the horses twitching their ears nervously, and it looked like bandits had attacked. A closer look revealed a horrible scene, with one man kicking another to death, while his partner sat nearby watching, dead bodies lying around, and bags and other accomplices visible behind the vehicle. It was terrifying. He couldn't believe it and had to get away as fast as he could before anyone noticed, but it seemed too late. Strange people had already turned toward him, their eyes flashing a hostile light in the dark. A young woman ran past them and drew attention away from the hero. They shouted after her, but she kept running without looking back. Her lungs burned from the sprint and her heart felt like it would burst. Canada noticed her and was even surprised that anyone had survived, and she looked terrified, fresh tears glinting in her eyes, her trembling shoulders and fingers clenched in fear, speaking louder than words. He realized he had to protect her, but didn't know how, torn between fear and the urge to act, and panic kept him from thinking clearly or judging the situation soberly. An assistant would not be enough. He realized he could not face them alone. They were armed, and the girl kept running. Each small step she took rang in his head like a sharp pain. He could hear the bandits talking. They didn't seem to plan to kill her. Instead, they wanted to take her alive and amuse themselves. Anger boiled inside him when he realized what they meant. Fear gave way to a sense of justice. Clenching his fists, he could not leave the girl in trouble. As an outsider from another world, he felt a special responsibility to help those in need, even if he had been banished from the kingdom. Remembering his powers, he decided to build a shop right on that spot. That meant using an awkward spell. A bit of embarrassment was worth it for a good cause. Nobody saw it coming. Her eyes lit up, hope of rescue returned, and the bandits were thrown into confusion. Seizing the moment, Kanata lifted the blinds in the shop. At the sound of the invitation, the girl slipped behind her rescuer, barely keeping her knees from trembling and holding her breath to avoid drawing attention. Only when the shop awning had been lowered and shooting the bow became impossible did the bandits decide to aim for the legs. A quick reaction could have saved 2 lives. Inside the store it is safe for now. Kanata must decide what to do next. He is in serious trouble. His thoughts are scrambled, his heart pounds, and only the worst outcomes run through his head. On the security cameras, he saw a gang trying to get inside. It did nothing to reassure him because there were too many. They moved in a coordinated way, splitting into small groups to cover more ground. Kanata thought all his problems were behind him, then a new one appeared. Strangers stood behind the hero, unsure how to thank him. Only now he finally got a clear look at her. Her large eyes shone with happiness, but she still seemed shaken by what had happened, her movements hesitant as if she feared danger might be here too, and Kanata looked at her and thought she was quite pretty. He even thought she might be an elf and almost immediately dismissed the idea, but there was no time to think because strange men in black were already breaking in, and the girl became scared again, so they had to act immediately. Meanwhile, the criminals had already pierced the awning with a spear. It was clear to the naked eye and on the cameras. On his computer, the young man saw he would have to face 3 bandits, so he began to brace himself for the fight. Kanata was upset, which was hardly surprising. The fire shutters wouldn't have held for long, especially in a situation like that. The kind woman was nervous and kept tugging at his jacket as if to check it was real. Turning around, he saw her looking at him with hope. Her sincere gaze would melt anyone's heart. If he were some kind of superhero, he would have already rescued her easily and gracefully. but sadly, life is not a fairy tale. The little girl needed support. Canada put his arms around her shoulders, looked into her eyes, and promised to distract the attackers when they broke in. At that moment, she could run away. He told her that while he was nearby, she did not need to be afraid because he would protect her. She was pleasantly surprised by his bravery, felt a little awkward, and even gave a faint smile. That was pleasing. The crack of glass in the window and the bandits' shouts made them turn around. 3 scoundrels were already inside, demanding the kid they called Canada show himself. They smashed and broke everything in sight. They look irritated because they don't understand anything and have no idea what kind of building this is. They're done with these games. Suddenly, one of them notices a closed door and points it out to the others, suggesting the victim and the rescuer might be hiding there. Canada had barely thought they were leaving when a sword appeared at the door beside him and began slashing, so he ducked quickly to avoid being seen and tried to figure out what to do next. He remembered driving off those terrible monsters yesterday. The fire extinguisher was the answer, so it had to be used again. Fortunately, it was nearby. While the criminals were stunned, the girl could escape. Having already told her his brilliant plan, he suddenly realized something was wrong. The computer's camera shows another thief prowling near the store, and now all our plans are at risk again. The hero had to decide his next move. Attacking him and letting her escape would mean he could not stop those inside. That made his original plan feel too limited. They had to act fast. An axe was already breaking through the door, and the attackers shouted they would kill them both. The girl crouched in the corner, barely holding back her tears. Suddenly he understood everything. A fire alarm had sounded, and that could be a chance to save the girl. The attackers were unlikely to expect such a move. It seemed the only way for him to get away. At first, the residents of Exile were very frightened by the sound because it was an entirely new technology to them, and the elders just shook their heads and whispered about witchcraft, while the young leaned out the windows trying to see where the sound came from. Grabbing a box of matches, he lit one and held it up to the device on the ceiling. He was sure even the bandits would not expect a surprise like that. Kanata was right. They were stunned and terrified. When the water began pouring in, at first they did not understand what was happening or where to go. The bandits rushed about like cornered animals, unsure how to escape the trap. Convinced it was magic, the bandits fell to the floor, either from surprise or because the tiles had become too slippery, and their eyes widened as the weapons tore from their hands and hovered in the air as if pulled by an invisible force. The noise will not only distract the bandits from their target, but also give Kanata, hiding under the table with a pretty stranger, a chance to get out of here, and someone might hear it and come to help. Suddenly, the boy and the girl heard a wild roar. It sounded like a black wolf had appeared nearby. I would not want to risk any more or scare this friendly woman. Kanata watched warily, unsure if these were the same monsters from last night. Time to turn off the fire alarm. The water stopped instantly and it got a little quieter. There was already enough noise here. We thank the device for doing its job. The bandits shouted to retreat and left their wounded behind. Seeing the monsters, everyone panicked. No one wanted to be eaten, so running away was the right choice. They shouldn't have come here in the first place. They even forgot one of them, and the hungry beast immediately loomed over his small figure, while Kanata and the stranger simply hoped this horror would end soon, and she pressed close to him and covered her ears with her hands. The shop owner stroked her head to calm her, feeling sad hearing the girl's cries. After a while, everything fell silent, and neither the owner nor the girl dared to raise their heads to look. After he was sure she was safe, he said the bandits and wolves were gone and everything was fine, and she still kept her eyes down, hiding them under thick black lashes. With the quiet restored, he could get an even better look at her. A perfect face, neatly styled hair, and clothing that was neat but expensive. She clung to him as if it could save her. Kinos was surprised to realize that certain situations can suddenly amplify some feelings and completely silence others. So absorbed in solving the problem, he didn't notice that he'd been holding such a sweet girl in his arms the whole time. Kanata didn't know how to act so she wouldn't find it strange. She kept her eyes on him and seemed to be waiting for something. He hadn't done anything unnecessary. He was only trying to save her life. Those touches were unintentional. He tried in vain to convince himself he was not bad. He needed to pull himself together. Kanata was surprised. For the first time that evening she spoke, screaming that she was very scared. Fortunately, no one in the building would react badly to that scream. Her emotions were entirely understandable. The shop owner could barely hold back his tears. She hugged him again and started to cry, and he could only stroke her light hair. The hero remembered he urgently needed to fix the shop before the monsters returned, because after everything that happened the building looked terrible. The metal gate and door were smashed, and the floor was soaked. She was still scared and upset. Kanata couldn't just walk away and leave things like that. He decided to calm the sweet stranger first, then deal with everything else. So small, Kanata could cover almost her entire back with his palms. Before Kanata could finish hugging her, the familiar chime of a system notification announced his level had risen. It annoyed him a little. He decided to check his stats now. The light switch cover stood out to the hero among all the items. It had not been here before. The shop owner was surprised. It made no sense that she appeared only on the 3rd level when she could have been added from the start, and Kanata's rage was boundless, frightening the mysterious stranger who had recently been a calm protector. Walking through Salada, the young girl guided Kanata westward, growing livelier and no longer looking frightened, though the forest still hid many dark and dangerous secrets. She took the seller's hand as if they'd been old friends, which made him feel awkward again. If all goes to plan, they'll reach the city in a few days. The stranger lit up with joy. Thanking the boy for his act, she introduced herself as Tina Arnush. She was only 16. She told him she was the daughter of Sakari Arnush, a merchant from the town of Kadna, which they were heading to through the forest. He listened with admiration. Though she was also 16 like him, she seemed very independent. Tina continued her story and found herself remembering recent events when a carriage bound for the kingdom of Grandale carrying a load was attacked by local bandits. The servants who were with us hid our newcomer during the attack, but they were tragically killed, and we couldn't see their bodies from around the corner, which hit the young woman hard and made it very painful for her even to remember it. She asked to have them buried and thanked Kanat again for everything. He said he could not just leave things as they were. His upbringing and moral principles would not let him stay indifferent. Known for her politeness, Tina wanted to ask a rather bold question and apologized in advance. Her respect for others showed in every word. She often thanked or apologized to the person she was speaking with. She decided to find out who her rescuer really was, even suspecting he might be a famous wizard. The young man was very surprised because he was an ordinary person. His clothes showed that, and it never crossed his mind that anyone could mistake him for a mage. Kanata gave his name and said he officially had the title hero of the shop from another world, and as he began to explain it was not what he expected, Tina suddenly asked if he was really not born here and looked very surprised. The girl could hardly believe he might be the legendary hero from another world, her eyes widening in surprise, and Kanata thought she was about to faint with joy, not realizing how important this was as Tina began to tell what she had heard. In the kingdom of Groundhill, everyone knows heroes from other worlds are real. Many books and legends tell how those heroes defeated evil and saved the world. A young girl often read those thrilling stories too. The boy thought people here had been given the same status as King Arthur, Perseus, or Japan's Yamato Takeru, and if that was true, it was a great honor to be listed alongside such famous figures. On the other hand, if Tina found out Kanata wasn't really a hero but just an outcast, she'd probably be disappointed in him, and that thought upset Kanata. Rather than rack his brains, the shopkeeper asked the girl if she knew how to get out of the forest. She said she did. Tina said she travels the trade routes often because the nearest town here is her hometown, and offered to be the hero's guide while waiting for his answer. Kanata never thought this could happen. She agreed gladly when he asked. It showed him she was ready to help him with everything. At last he agreed to go with him, but one thing still bothered him. Always, even when they walked, ate, or exercised, she never let go of his hand. Kanata wasn't used to that and figured maybe all the girls here were that bold. Used to being alone, it was a constant test for him. Sometimes his embarrassment was hard to hide, and she immediately looked at him with concern, checking if he was all right and needed her help. He said he was fine, but accidentally called the girl a pet name and quickly corrected himself. At times like that, Kanat tried to change the subject and reassured Tina that they needed to get out of the forest quickly before monsters or bandits attacked them again. The main character asked the girl if all monsters in this world only come out at night, wanting to be sure he had understood that when he first met the wolf-like creatures and using them as an example to make it clearer. Tina said yes, but many monsters with powerful magic can even move in sunlight. Bandits can attack in daylight, unlike monsters, so the heroes must always stay on guard. Kanata agreed with the girl and felt uneasy, knowing the danger does not disappear even after all their trials. The boy also decided to ask our new guy where they were headed, to Kadna. Kanata wanted to check whether he had understood correctly that the newcomer was also under Grandale's control. His tense face betrayed his anxiety. He really wanted to avoid towns tied to that kingdom. For Tina, it was almost her first meeting with him, and she knew nothing about his recent tragedies. Malady explained that Kadna is an independent, fortified city, founded by free traders that still thrives on trade, and is one of the continent's best-known trading centers. Kanata was surprised. It turned out there was freedom there. He became curious right after that story. She replied that she wasn't sure about the freedom, but she was very pleased with the incredible atmosphere there. Reaching Kadna on foot would take about 10 days. By day, the heroes walked through the forest, and at night they hid from bandits and monsters in shops. Tina really liked the items in the guy's shop, especially the bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich and the milk tea, and always said it was incredibly tasty, as Canada warned her to eat more slowly so she wouldn't choke. Kanata asked the girl if he had understood correctly that their world had been at war with the Dark Lord's army for over 100 years. She confirmed this and said that this year marks exactly 100 years since the first battle. The girl's words forced the hero to think seriously. When he first arrived here and heard Queen Kruska's account, he believed the crisis was recent and that they still had time to prepare the heroes. That belief was very wrong. Looking at Tina Arnush, he realized how much people had lost during these long years of war. People say the lands under the Dark Lord's rule keep expanding. To fix the situation, leaders of several countries began performing the so-called summoning ritual. However, it is hard to believe that in recent years, no country has managed to perform it successfully. Good news reached the kingdom of Grandale for the first time in 12 years. Heroes from another world were summoned, 31 in all, and Kanata realized their class had been moved here to fill the army's shortage of soldiers. For the first time, people felt a spark of hope in the battle against the Overlord's army. Without exception, everyone pinned their hopes on the heroes, the high school students who could never have imagined having to take part in something like this. After listening to the girl, the hero said he understood everything, but doubted he could meet everyone's expectations. Tina objected and said that Mr. Canada, as she called him, was a strong, handsome, kind, smart, and wonderful person, which left the boy confused again, his cheeks flushing and his eyes turning away. She reminded him that he had saved her life. That thought alone made her see the shop owner, Akano Kanata, as a true hero. Her voice trembled with emotion and tears of gratitude shone in her eyes. He wanted to thank her but paused, feeling unworthy of such an honor as memories of his mistakes kept surfacing, and he could not see himself as a hero. Keep in mind that even though he came here from another world, he was expelled, and people called him worthless, a nickname that stuck to him. It seemed best not to tell her about it, since he could no longer tell her the truth, so he decided to thank her and pretend everything was fine. This conversation couldn't be put off. The girl was still interested and wanted to ask him more. Tina gently asked what he planned to do after arriving in town, but he said he had no concrete plans yet. To be honest, he never had any. Overjoyed, the girl invited him to stay, saying her father would gladly welcome the person who saved his daughter's life. The newcomer was eager to hear the boy's stories, sure he had many, and every time he started talking about his adventures her eyes lit up with childlike curiosity. Kanata felt embarrassed to admit he knew almost nothing about this world. Still, it was a good chance to live with the locals for a while. He worried about being a burden on the girl's family, but she reassured him she would be glad to host him. When the hero thanked her, she simply smiled and waved as if it were obvious. Helping others felt as natural to her as breathing. There was no false note in her voice. Aknos never planned for the future. He simply didn't have the time. The selection of goods in his shop had grown significantly. Now might be the perfect time to start his own business. Constantly hiding in the store isn't a solution. You should gradually leave your comfort zone and get to know the world around you so you're ready for the different surprises that may come. Unexpectedly, he felt a surge of energy and enthusiasm and was surprised to discover that having a goal could actually be rewarding. He had once believed only naive dreamers aimed for something, but life proved much simpler and clearer. He hurried to the city with his new cheerful, sweet girlfriend. She fully supported the idea. Usually reserved, he felt livelier when he was with her. 10 days later, they finally reached the city of Kadna. Tired but hopeful, the travelers stopped to rest and take in their surroundings. Despite the long journey, they realized the real adventure was just beginning. Pointing to the road to Kanata, the girl said proudly it was her hometown. She asked us to notice how beautiful it was, and the view made it hard to look away. The city was enormous. Kanata saw many old buildings set against towering mountain cliffs. He had not expected it to be so beautiful when he arrived. A true otaku, he immediately thought they could even hold an anime festival here. Tina didn't quite get it, since people here were into something else. Kanata tried to explain it another way, saying there really were a lot of people here. He said that in his home world anime festivals are always packed, just like this one, and she listened with interest, imagining the warm sense of unity among fans of Japanese culture. Tina said she loved it here, and had heard many interesting stories from other heroes about Akihabara and Ikebukuro, so she really wanted to see them for herself, and the hero was amazed by how different everything felt. He kept thinking about the future. If he could return, he wanted to bring the sweet girl with him. He hoped they could be happy far from this world. she deserved a better life and he could give it to her. Ultimately, together they could have many adventures in this world and even defeat the Dark Lord, but the future is uncertain, and it is not clear if he will find Tina, who was brought into his world, or if they can live happily together. Realizing it was almost impossible, the hero felt very sad, nearly in tears. Such happy endings happen only in fairy tales, not in real life. He accidentally said it out loud, which greatly surprised his partner. Tina felt a wave of happiness returning home at last after all she'd been through. Tears filled her eyes. Unable to express all her thoughts, the girl took his hand again and said they were there only because of him. She added she could never fully repay him because his help was priceless to her. She pleaded with the hero to let her thank him in another way. Kanata didn't quite understand what she meant. A young woman asked him to take care of her and promised to live only for him, and he was struck by her words, even wondering if there was anyone in the world whose heart would not skip a beat at her charming eyes and gentle words. Kanata tried to tell her he hadn't done anything special, but the words lodged in his throat. Her gentle hands trembled as she clutched the dress fabric. Never before had he seen such sincerity and devotion. He should really thank Tina. He just needed to come up with a reason quickly. Flustered, the main character said that without Tina, he would have gotten lost in the forest, and only God knows what might have happened next. Her face lit up when she heard she could help her rescue her, and she repeated her request, ignoring the hero's nervous laugh and embarrassment. Suddenly, Nata noticed something. Their turn came. Guards watched them closely from under their helmets. Tension filled the air as the sentry's stern gazes scanned each traveler. Tina was on cloud 9. The boy looked a little puzzled, and it all seemed too simple to be true. Tina's father might be more influential than Kanata thought. If the girl he saved turned out to be a millionaire's daughter, it would feel like a typical romantic manga plot, and Tina said she had a special pass. He paused, wondering where all the people standing with them in line had come from. Each had a very different face, yet something connected them, and it seemed they might all be residents of Kadna. Another weary sigh escaped him over his fate. Had he been tougher, he would have been a true hero, and Tina the leading lady, yet he wondered why he had been given such a useless power. The girl asked the hero not to stare so closely because she felt embarrassed. The girl said the whole line of people is here to get the same past she has. Nothing is visible from here, but there's also a place called Zastinia. He couldn't admit he didn't really understand. Tina explained they were temporary workers. Most of them come to the city to earn money and then return home. Almost everyone in the line was from there. Beyond the city's southern wall lies an area where residents have no citizen rights in Kadna, and the hero asked if it could be considered a completely different city. The city felt enormous. Narrow streets, unfamiliar signs, and endless turns made Kurata dizzy. He worried about only one thing, not getting lost here. Then Tina took his hand. She decided to take him home. It was clear she missed her family deeply. Kanata followed quietly, admiring how she changed when she thought of them. She smiled and said she wanted to introduce him to her father as soon as possible. He looked at their intertwined hands and probably thought how quickly everything was changing. After walking through a few narrow, crowded streets, arm in arm and his lovely partner Kanata reached their destination and froze in surprise. A huge building loomed before him. It was hard to believe this was really her home. It was unclear whether she was really a noblewoman the hero should not have held her hand, or whether the story simply began with the intriguing title, A Bride from Another World for the hero. In any case, even though he hadn't wanted it, his guess proved correct. The little girl really was the daughter of a rich person, and she simply did not see anything strange or wrong about it. The young man hoped he would not be scolded for what he'd done involving the girl, since it was nothing special. Then a man approached them. Tina threw her arms around his neck to hug him. Donis, that was his name, said that when he heard about the attack, he thought he would die. He was very glad that the girl and her companion were still alive. She apologized for making him worry. It wasn't her fault, but saying sorry for no reason was a habit for her. Our new acquaintance introduced her rescuer to this man. He said he was the Arnush family's butler and thanked them sincerely for saving Lady Tina. Kanata said it was nothing and didn't deserve thanks. Someone suddenly called the girl. Kanat realized from the girl's words that it was her father. Glad that his daughter was alive, the man reached out his hand to her. Kanata was relieved that everything had turned out well. Tina was alive and back with her father, and he was glad he had been able to help her. Without warning, Dad hit Tina. Why did he do it? The man blamed the woman for returning without the cargo, saying the family lost important property, called her worthless, and told her not to come home until she paid for all the damage and lost income. Kanata was outraged by the adult's behavior, overcome with a sense of injustice and ready to intervene, but the butler stopped him, saying these were family matters best left alone. The hero ignored him. Even if he couldn't hit the fat fool everyone called his father, he could still say a few harsh words for insulting the defenseless girl. Let him try to hurt her again. He even called Kanata ragged. Tina sat on the cold road, instinctively holding her cheek that burned from the blow. Her usually clear voice sounded weak and plaintive as she bitterly called to Kanata for help through tears. The young man reminded that fat degenerate that Tina was his daughter who had nearly died. He had no right to call himself her father after that. Every word was filled with contempt for the man, if he could even be called that. Tension rose. The man refused to yield. The young man seemed to be overstepping the city's rules. Tina begged him to stop, even dropping to her knees. He risked his life to protect her, and he may one day save not just the kingdom of Grandale, but the whole world. She added that Mr. Canada was not an ordinary man, but a hero from another world. Hearing those words, the brazen man gave a sly smile. That he alone had been driven out and declared a nobody proved he was no hero and utterly worthless. Kanata clenched his teeth. He wanted the truth to come out another way, in person, and he definitely did not want to be embarrassed in front of her family, so he worried how she would see him now after everything he had said. The father continued, "This is the same scoundrel who did many terrible things, and he could not have known that all those crimes were made up to damage Canada's reputation." Convinced that even contact with such a worthless man would damage the Arnui family's reputation, he grew furious and drove him away, pointing at him, and Tina watched sadly. Standing up, the woman spoke loudly so everyone could hear that Kanat was her hero, and no one had the right to talk to him that way, tears glistening in her eyes, and the young man heard it and froze, knowing no one would believe him anyway. Her father ignored her words, grabbed her hand, and said that if she had come back alive, she needed to get to work instead of standing and talking, and Tina did not want that at all. She sobbed bitterly and called Mr. Kanata for help, but he could only reach out his hand. The desperation and helplessness in her voice made his heart clench. Arriving in the Zastania district, the protagonist didn't expect it to look like real slums, with dirt, rundown buildings, and an air of poverty. The man sincerely apologizes for his brother's harsh words. Kanata believes he should be the one to apologize. He had no right to interfere in Tina's family affairs, though he thought they'd split up sooner or later. Even if the boy had taken the girl by force, it would have caused even more problems. But the young man who had clenched his fists gathers his thoughts, apologizes for his boldness, and asks permission to pose a question. The man agrees. Canada wants to start a business in the city and is looking for a suitable location for a shop. The man says you can't trade in the city without being a citizen. He suggests another option and tells him to do it in the load-bearing wall. Adonis says people can live and trade freely in this area. Newcomers aren't driven away here, but are forced to live on the outskirts, farther from the wall where the risk of attack is much higher, as if they are a living shield for others. Standing in an empty spot, he feels completely defenseless and hopes nothing bad will happen. Canada lets out a heavy sigh. His new life in another world begins, and he is prepared for any challenge. People turn, surprised, and look at the boy who shouted. Outside the shop, Canet is calling people from another world to come and rob it because the rarest goods are stocked there. Shoppers walk into the store and can hardly believe their eyes. They've never seen anything like it, and a man remembers the residents of Grandale. He used to rarely speak to locals, but now he engages with them more. What matters is he truly wants to run this business, so things will improve soon. A pretty girl walks up to the hero and asks what history is. Kanata smiles and says this shop sells rare, otherworldly goods and encourages you not to be shy. City residents are impressed, but they still start buying things. The first customer bought a sandwich, and Kanata tasted it, so he decided to make a good impression to keep people coming back. But then an awkward silence fell between them. Kanata completely forgot to set the product price. He was worried because he never had to spend money in Grandale. A royal stipend supported him, so he didn't even go shopping or buy anything. The boy doesn't understand the value of money and tries to remember the names of coins, but he only knows 4 types. A slightly confused young man is trying to make sense of it all. He sets the price at a single bronze coin. Everyone freezes in surprise. Everyone rushes to the checkout to grab the low-priced goods, which really scares the main character. The store closed in the evening. Canada is exhausted from work. He had a crazy day. Later, a kind woman explained the local exchange rate to him. Here, 1 copper coin would buy you as much as you wanted. If a shop like that existed in Canada's world, he'd go there every day. A young man remembers when people happily bought everything in sight, and now he sees how reckless that was. He believes that if he'd known about this, he would definitely have asked Tina about the local currency. He keeps thinking about the girl, worrying about her, wondering how she is, and fearing she might be disappointed in him. Kanata misses her very much and really wants to see her. The store has been open for a month. He learned the local language and got used to the hard work in the store. The man set a limit of no more than 5 items per person. They built a restroom for visitors only. He set work hours and even 2 30-minute breaks to restock goods. The 24 hours sign on the storefront is false, but he hopes the locals still do not understand what it means. There is only one checkout at the store, and Canada still provides support here. Local residents have already started taking care of and maintaining things themselves. The hero is starting to feel like part of this place. He believes he has finally found the purpose he has been searching for in this world. A man knocks on a young man's door to get his attention. Kanata lets Zarl in to pick up the goods. The boy hands him a bag of money he earned yesterday, and the man praises him for his excellent work and trading skills. Zarl jokingly tells Kanat that he envies him. The man who seems suspicious is actually a merchant from the west. They met about a week ago after the store opened. That day the boy was going to rest a little, but a stranger spoke to him and made him uneasy. The merchant smiled, peered into the doorway, and offered an intriguing deal. Kanata was frightened because the man seemed suspicious. I'll ask the shop owner how he exchanged his earnings, but he didn't even understand what exchange meant. The merchant explained that all the boy's goods cost just 1 bronze coin each, so the boy receives thousands, even tens of thousands of coins every day. The merchant was sure the boy was already facing the problem of where to store them all. The hero thought about this. Zero offers to trade bronze coins for gold, but it's not free. He wanted 0.5% of the amount for his services, telling the man it was a good deal. Even though the young man mistrusted the merchant, he seriously considered the offer because the shop really did have too many coins. That's how their collaboration began. At the very start of their business relationship, the young man felt uneasy because he still did not know if the other person was trustworthy. Despite that, he kept exchanging coins with him. They still work together, and the merchant jokes that Kanata is called a god here, which makes him blush and ask them to stop making up nicknames. Kanata wonders if there's really only one goddess in their world, Ashia. Zarl confirms that people really call her a goddess. Because of that, women rule not only in Grandale but in other countries as well, and all the prominent people there are women. So those whose actions resemble saints' deeds are considered incarnations of the goddess Ashia, Zarl explained. Nagag agrees, but he still finds it strange. He still can't get used to it, because the fact that he exists is a miracle, and it doesn't matter whether he is a man or a woman. The merchant is amazed that the people of Grandale could drive out a hero with such incredible abilities and calls them fools. Kanata is surprised the rumors spread so fast and says he tried negotiating with them, but it had no effect. Remembering Tamaki, the boy wonders how she is doing now. He asks Zarl how things are going in Grandale now. The merchant says that besides the news of his exile, it is known that other kingdoms are actively helping the heroes, while Grandale strictly forbids the heroes from leaving the country. Zarl asks if the hero really wants to know what's happening in the city and receives a positive answer. Despite some of the heroes not being very good people, he still has friends he cares about and wants to know how they are doing now. The merchant linked it to Canada and promised to have his people find out everything, saying that if the young man asked, he would do his best. The boy blushed and thanked the man. Lost in thought, the boy asks the man why he treats him so well when he gets nothing from it. The man looks puzzled and does not understand what the young man means. In his view, Kanata is the greatest hero in centuries, and that greatly surprises him. Wanting to be honest, the merchant admits that no one actually wants the heroes to defeat the Dark Lord. Canada is stunned by the news. The war against him has long been part of a large economic system, and if the Dark Lord disappears, the countries that sell battle supplies and provide mercenaries will lose their income, triggering a global crisis and driving millions into poverty. That figure was far higher than the number of people the monsters had killed. The hero wondered whether Grandale might be refusing other countries' requests to maintain its leadership. Zara says the global food crisis can be solved very quickly, but only if this man is here. Ultimately, he can create any resource in unlimited quantities from nothing. This is why the merchant is convinced Kana is the true embodiment of the goddess Ashia. The hero's face suddenly changes. He asked the merchant again why he believed the boy could endlessly create goods and products. It was unclear how Zarillo knew this, since the merchant had only told Tinny about his shop system. The man backs up his claim by saying he often visits that store, even set up round-the-clock surveillance for his people, and has never seen anyone bring goods there. Even the store building looked suspicious, Zarl explains. Kanata realizes he messed up. The merchant says happily that he has realized all the goods will be made right here. The young man is surprised by the discovery, since he had thought himself clever but not that clever. Now he understands that it is better for them not to become enemies. The hero asked her to keep his trade secret. Zerla agreed and promised not to ask again. He sees this boy as a valuable partner that matters far more to him than just killing monsters, and he wants to keep a good relationship with him. Kanata also values his partner greatly. Zero leaves the store and promises he'll find out all the news about Grandale today and then tell it all. The boys say goodbye to each other. Kanata sits at the computer, typing on the keyboard. Here the noise distracts him. Noise outside by the emergency exit makes the boy nervous because the locals could not have known about that exit, and he runs through the worst-case scenarios in his head. He's worried a hired man sent by Tina's father may have come for him. A voice can be heard behind the door. He calls Mr. Kanata to show he knows him personally, and the hero tenses, unable to believe it. He opens the door. His suspicions are confirmed when he recognizes the voice. Tina rushes into the man's arms, thrilled to see Mr. Kanata because she has long dreamed of meeting him. Both are delighted to meet after missing each other. They feel alive again. The girl is still standing in the hallway. Unable to leave, she stays there. The boy is thinking that the girl has feelings for him. He also remembers his cat Mimi, who was very attached to him. Awkward in the long hug, the boy looks for a way to end it quickly. He shoves Tina aside and she breaks free. Happy to see him, Kanata immediately invites the girl inside, and she gladly agrees. He asks the girl how she managed to find him in such a big city. The girl said she heard from a woman that the young man had left town and that people were already talking about his successful shop, so she understood at once and had wanted to visit him earlier but was forbidden to leave the house. Kanata is upset and says he must apologize because he didn't tell the girl he was expelled from Grandale. It was only natural that Tina looked at the guy. She told him he didn't need to apologize at all, and the boy was taken aback. The girl thinks the people at that company are true heroes and cannot believe Grandale made such a mistake by firing them. People in Grandale are probably regretting their decision now. Tina had been watching the store since noon, and Kanata was very surprised because she had never told him earlier. She loves that so many people now visit his shop and leave smiling, and thinks this may be the real dream of every true hero. You can't justify it by saying his shop just sells cheap goods, and that doesn't make him useful to anyone. Tina replies that it's not true. She genuinely believes in this man and says it was all possible thanks to him. Tina believes her abilities are better than everyone else's. Kanata remembers Zarl's words, who, like Tina, once said something similar. As the merchant's daughter, she understands trade well. The boy feels embarrassed and happy at the same time. Tina takes his hands to support him and tells him she thinks he's a real hero. She tells him he once saved her life, so to her he is a true hero. The boy blushes at the attention and the kind words. The girl dares to suggest that the boy sees himself as worthless because he cannot fight monsters. But she thinks it's complete nonsense. Even if he can't fight, he still has limitless potential to save lives. Tina tells him to be proud of his abilities. Kanata is deeply moved by the girl's support and thanks her. Her words leave him feeling much lighter. She tells him that no matter what happens, she'll always be by his side. Suddenly, the girl leans in to kiss the boy, surprising him and leaving him confused. He can't believe what's happening. Kanata pushes the surprised girl away, realizing he is not yet ready for such changes in their relationship. Feeling embarrassed, he turns her down, which deeply frightens Tina. He awkwardly gets up and starts to fidget, saying it's time to end the break and open the shop because customers have probably grown tired of waiting. Tina says it sounded a bit artificial, and Kanta starts apologizing in a confused way. About 2 months pass since Tina returned. The Kanata shop remains hugely popular, so more customers keep coming, and Tina helps the guy in the store a bit. A girl tells the hero there are fewer visitors now, and he can take a break. The boy thanks her as he picks up the boxes. Taking a short break, he tells Tina to call if anything happens, and she just smiles and tells him not to worry because everything is under control. The store closes in the evening. Tina talks to Mr. Kanata. When she asks if she can help the guy in the store, he becomes uneasy. She already told her father she's going to an internship, so she may stay here for a long time. The guy is surprised to learn that Tina might move in with him. She is happy they can now live together, and he finally realized what had happened to him. Tina promises she will do everything she can and asks him to trust her. Kanata, charmed by her smile, realizes she is the one he wants to protect. He thinks this girl could be even better than he imagines and wonders whether all traders like Kadna and Zarl are that kind as Tina watches the boy with interest. Agreeing to take her as his assistant, the man sees she knows a lot and, most importantly, trusts her, which reassures him, so he asks her to rely on him too. Tina thanks the guy and says she knows everything about him so he does not have to worry, but Canada interrupts and clarifies he meant himself, not the shop. Interrupting her, he asks again what she meant when she said she knew everything. Tina says sometimes he calls her Nachka because he finds it cute when he talks about the mole on her back and other little things. Surprised, the young man drops to his knees and begins to ask her for forgiveness, but the girl, confused, only asks him not to apologize. The store remains very popular. Thanks to Tina, everything is running smoothly, so Canada can relax and eat in peace. Here he no longer feels alone, and his life is so full that he feels calm and happy. That evening, the boy tells Tina it's late and she should rest. Not planning to rest, she sits at the computer and tells the guy to take a break while she quickly enters today's earnings into the computer. He smiles awkwardly because almost nothing surprises him anymore except Tina's professionalism. He thinks that if she had internet access, she would immediately figure out how to promote their shop on websites and with ads. After a while, she finishes work, looks at him, turns off the light, and walks to his bed. She sits on his bed and watches the boy sleep. Startled, the boy wakes up and knocks a grill off the bed. Tina clicks her tongue and quietly says today was another failure. Kenneth watches her closely. Tina gets into bed and wishes him good night while he buries his face in his hands, tormented by the thought that if he crosses the line, there will be no turning back, and he can hardly resist the temptation. After he says good night and leaves, she falls asleep, determined not to give up and to try again tomorrow. Their days went like this. During the day, the young man worked at the store, and in the evening, he and Tina argued. One day, the boy heard a sound and realized his level had gone up. The discovery left him stunned because he still had no idea what he had done. Kanata realized he alone had heard the level-up sound, and without wasting time, hurried off, calling to Tinny that he would be in his office for a while. The hero couldn't understand why it happened, since he hadn't fought or defended himself, but he still decided to check his status for a system error. He actually leveled up because you can do it without fighting by running a shop, which proved even cooler, and now he has new merchandise, a defense system with a scouting drone, and much more. New icons appeared on his desktop. He doesn't rush to open them because the store may have added devices specifically for this world. They are hard to understand at a glance, so he avoids clicking them unless necessary. A young man finds a recon drone, but isn't sure it's safe to use. Hoping it won't cause any harm, he decides to try starting it. Kanata sees on the camera a drone that appears to be flying straight from the shop roof. The drone shot up into the sky, surprising the boy because he hadn't expected it to fly so high. Thrilled by the new device, he is surprised that the drone can even spot a person sleeping on the roof of his store. Suddenly, a stranger sleeping on the roof catches his eye and leaves him stunned. Zooming in, he tries, confused, to make out the body lying there. He sprints up and climbs onto the roof to find out what the person who is supposed to be at the Grandale is doing here. Climbing onto the roof, the furious Kanata shouts at the girl, who flinches, confused by the sudden yell. The boy recognizes the girl. It's Tamaki, and she greets him. A clumsy girl tries to say something, loses her balance, and falls face first onto the hard floor, hitting her face. Tamaki shouts at the guy for scaring her so much, insisting that if bruises appear on her tender skin, it will be his fault. Kanata asks the girl why she is here. The girl runs up to him and says she came just for him. Kanata is confused by the girl's words. Zarl approaches another trader and asks if it is true. The trader confirms it. A worried man looks up at the night sky. A loud roar comes from the mountains. From there, a huge monster emerges and hisses. Kanata asks the girl how she ended up here, and Tamaki says that during hero training her level rose, giving her the ability to search and track, so she ran away from the city and came here. The boy is amazed that the girl made it through this forest, since it's so dangerous and full of monsters. Tamaki activated her assassin skill called invisibility. She can completely hide her presence. That let her get away even while monsters were chasing her. The boy fell silent, thinking. Nervous, she had expected him to be thrilled and surprised, but he just stood there thinking how he'd made her show two strange abilities at once, while he could only invent new kinds of Vanihiri. Kanata says it's not that important to him. He finds something else much more interesting. Tamaki awkwardly confirms she did run away from the training program. The girl complains that the program keeps getting harder and she can't keep up, and the boy, surprised, asks if she's sure that's enough to defeat the Dark Lord of Demons. Not upset at all, she's almost certain the elite group has already gathered around Kuramachi-kun, so they'll win easily without her. Kanata asks how everyone is doing and whether the girl is okay, but she answers him reluctantly. She says everyone on the third team worried about that boy. A nearby shop helped many, but after he left, some people shut themselves off. Everyone thought it happened just as Kuramachi said, and the boy was kicked out for his own mistakes. He angrily pointed out that the players from the first team had never accepted him, but Kanata's best friend was still worried. The girl also asks the hero if he remembers Esajiri Reiku, but he can barely remember her. Tamaki tells him she disappeared around the same time the guy left town. Apparently Minajuki ran into her by the gate. After Aki Nasukun, whom she'd long been watching, was finally expelled, she told him she had nothing left to do in this city. She decided to travel on her own from now on, asked Nazuki and Kwon to take care of themselves, and wished them all the best. Surprised, the boy realizes Tamaki was watching him the whole time and asks why, but she doesn't know, and she wonders if she might have run after him, and he says he didn't notice her. The boy asks if it's okay that one member of the group of 13 went off alone. Tamaki replies that Rakiachin has the Po ability. Yet she doesn't know what her ability is. Kanata thinks the girl could try to find her using her searching and tracking skills. The girl simply shrugs, because without the person she was searching for, nothing will work, and that person unfortunately took everything necessary with them. The young man decides to approach a reputable merchant who might know something about us or Gary. The girl thanks Kanata. She appreciates how much he cares about Reichakin and thanks him again. To the boy, these were not special things, but ordinary and obvious, and he sincerely hopes all his classmates will survive and return home together. The girl smiles at the boy, pleased and understanding. She is also sure everyone should come back alive and unharmed. A man believes the girl cannot use her search skills without a goal and gives her a hint. The girl starts waving her arms and awkwardly shouting, while the boy just stands there, confused. Tamaki already had the guy's keychain with a kitten picture in her bag, and she's glad he didn't notice. She touches her keychain, but Kanata pays no attention. Tina rushes into the room and anxiously tells the hero the sandwiches are almost gone. Spotting Tamaki, she awkwardly apologizes for getting in the way, while Tamaki only cries out in fear. Impatiently, she asks who this pretty girl next to her is. The slightly confused young man remembers that this is their first meeting. Kanata points to the girl and says she is his employee. They work together in the store during the day and live under the same roof at night, helping each other. The girl introduces herself as Tina and says she is a bit clumsy. Tamaki exclaims happily. She realized Tina was just an employee, but she never guessed the guy was short on staff. Again, she shouts and offers to hire her. Tina cuts in and apologizes for bringing it up. Since she started working here, there have been enough hands, so she thinks 2 people are sufficient. She looks at Kanata, waiting for him to approve her words. He just looks surprised and notes that thanks to Tinny, everything has become much simpler. There still aren't enough workers. After hearing that, Tina became upset, while Tamaki, by contrast, was glad. Tina covers her face with her hands in frustration. A boy tries to calm her, saying Tamaki can be loud, selfish, and messy like her grandfather, but she's not that bad. The boy recalls and tells Timoki that his shop's level has risen significantly. They lead her into the store, and she is surprised by how much there is. Tamaki is happy to see many different sandwiches, rice balls, and drinks, along with a large selection of sweets like pudding and melon bread, and Kanata proudly remembers when he had only 3 dishes. The girl says she wants to spend her whole life here. She rushes into the boy's arms and tells him he's the best. She runs through the store, taking in everything with excitement, and already looking for a cola to go with the fries, while Canada watches her with a smug smile. She loves trying new jumps, especially with lots of treats nearby. Tina laughs, covering her mouth, and tells the boy that Tamaki-san is very funny. Kanata agrees. Despite her quirks, she always looks out for her classmates, including him. He wants her to treat him well too. Tina smiles and apologizes to Kanata for being rude to his best friend. She says meeting heroes from another world is a great honor. Tamaki decides and says that starting tomorrow, she will work hard so others can rely on her. The next day, Tamaki says she is tired and asks for a break, and Kanata is surprised at how quickly Tamaki became tired. With no visitors, they all agree to take a break. The young man noticed that for some reason there were far fewer customers than usual today. Tina went to close the door but saw a customer still standing outside. Kanata was surprised to find the district chief, Sochi Melty, already waiting by the door. Called the district head, she actually has no clearly defined territory here. As an elder, she often organizes meetings for local residents. She says she really likes these French fries. Everyone here loves the kind, welcoming Sochi. Outside the city, people call her the district head and a mother to everyone. She thanks the heroes for their hospitality, and Kanata sincerely thanks her for taking him in as a newcomer. The woman believes Kanata has become indispensable to their neighborhood, so they should be grateful to him. So she asked him to introduce her to his employees. Tamaki introduces himself to the woman as a hero from another world. Kanata does the same, and Tamaki says he is glad to meet her. Smiling, she says it's a great honor for them to have two heroes in the outer district. Tina also meets with this woman and thanks her for taking care of them. Kanata isn't sure if Tina is even bothered by being from downtown, so she simply tells her she looks like a real angel. People had long told her that a pleasant young woman worked here, and she was delighted when she finally saw the one she had heard so much about. The girl is very happy, with tears of joy in her eyes, sincerely thanking the person she is glad to have met. Kanata is glad that Sochi and Tina became friends. A young man thanks the district head for visiting them today and asks whether she came for a specific reason. Placing her hand over her heart, she says she actually came here to tell him something important. She's really sorry, but she wants this guy to leave the store and the area immediately. Zoril appears out of nowhere and fully backs the woman's words, leaving everyone except Sochi startled by the merchant's sudden arrival and without time to ask how he got here. He says they were so absorbed in their conversation they didn't even notice him, so he just walked in. Praising Tina and the leader, he also spots Tamaki and realizes he never noticed that even more beautiful and attractive girls had gathered nearby. She tells Zoril he arrived just in time because she was talking with Akino-san. The merchant apologizes and asks her to continue. To prevent misunderstandings, the woman says this is mainly for the safety of Akina's son and the store. Surprised, the man looks at the woman and asks her to repeat herself. She says this land has long been home to an ancient earth dragon who has lived here since before the current demon lord created monsters, and the dragon lives in the mountains and sleeps most of the time but comes down every 4 years to hunt for food. Kanata froze in terror, screaming in fear. He could not understand why they had told him only months after he entered the outer zone. Zoril awkwardly scratched his head, sure Kanata already knew. He explains the huge city wall wasn't built by chance, but to protect people from a fierce earth dragon, and the boy thinks newcomers are probably being told to live outside the city because of that dangerous creature. Canada worries about what will happen if the earth dragon named Caddies attacks and how the people behind the wall will respond, since being merely safe is not enough for her. Kirill says most people evacuate temporarily, but some still struggle with money and health, and those who could not leave become victims. Kanata can't understand why people in the city can't help them. The town behind the walls likely has a few knights and enough guards, and if you know exactly when the attack will come, you can simply shelter all the residents behind the walls during the attack. Tina says at least it worked out this way. The city district has closed its gates completely, and everyone is preparing for defense, so they won't have time to save the residents of the outer zone, and Kanata wonders what this might mean. Upset, Tina says there are rumors that after the last cadets passed through the outer district was half destroyed, but the residents were unharmed, and she does not remember the details of what happened. She says she's very sorry. Kanata gently covers her hands with his palm. After trading glances with Tina and Kanata, they hint it's time to return to the previous topic. She nods sadly and says they have already learned that Caddies has awakened and is moving toward them. By Zoril's orders, his men have begun evacuating people beyond the outer wall. Kanata understands why there are so few people here today. The commander says Caddies may attack these locations tonight and apologizes that it all happened so suddenly. This community had always been poor and barely got by. When the shop opened, their living standards improved, and now everyone can live with a smile. A woman thanks the hero for the shop near her home. Zoril adds that everyone wants the heroes to be okay. The merchant finished his thought, saying that once Caddies leaves, they'll return here. Tamaki appeals to Kanata. The boy asks her not to make that face. He'd gladly promise it, but right now their opponent is the game's main monster. Thinking of the city's residents, the hero decides. Tina now holds Kanata's hand, supporting her. He turns to Tina, who is sitting beside him. They exchange glances and Kanata nods in agreement. He tells everyone joyfully that he's already decided everything. Zarl is very pleased with the news. Zarl says he will tell his subordinates now to take them to a safe place right away, because if they leave. Kanata cuts him off and proudly says he's the hero of this shop and will defeat this earth dragon. Everyone is shocked by the boy's words except Tina. Tamaki repeats the boy's words that he is a hero and beat Caddies. They shout at the hero, showing his words didn't affect them at all. Kanata nervously holds onto the back of the chair, having not expected such an objection to his words. The boy ignores the objections and asks the man what the Caddies look like and what makes them special. The merchant grabs his head and cannot understand how someone could plan to defeat a dragon while knowing nothing about it. He still says it's a muscular, powerful dragon. It withstands both magic and sword strikes, so they named it Caddies as a warning. Its body is covered in armor and thick scales, so even the military do not know how to deal with it. Realizing this dragon is unusually tough and resistant to everything, the boy thinks it over. Tamaki is panicking because, even though they are heroes, she doubts they can do anything, and Tina asks if the guy has a plan. The young man already has an idea but hasn't tested it yet, so he's not sure it will work. Canada thanks the residents of the Outer Wall District for giving him a place where he feels at home, but to make it a reality, he will need your help. Aware of all the risks, the hero asks everyone in the room to help him. Tina immediately takes his side and says she will always defend the interests of the people she looks after, so she trusts him. She says she'll gladly help Kanata. They exchange awkward glances. Tamaki shouts she offers to help the boy because she believes in him and promised to protect him. She says she's long been friends with Canada, so she simply has no other choice. She calls for help too, but lacking special abilities, she can only care for the wounded. Kanata is genuinely happy and thanks everyone. Zarl is nervous and has no idea what to do. He's worried that things could go wrong because of them, but Kanata just laughs and says that if the merchant helps them, the boy will help the merchant. Zarl is still asking the man to share his secret plan to destroy Caddies. Night has fallen, the preparations to meet the dragon are finished. Now only the lanterns remain to be lit one by one. The young man thanks everyone for their help and asks that those who have finished their work be evacuated. People below agree to carry this out. The hero looks down, deep in thought. In charge of the drone, Tamaki is waiting for instructions from the store before she can start operating it. With others' help, they already have everything ready. Now everything depends on whether the hero can defeat the dragon. So far he had managed, but now he must fight a powerful dragon. Facing it up close for the first time makes him anxious, since failure would put everyone in danger. Tina carefully walks up to the tense man and asks if he's okay. Kanata admits to the girl that he is really scared right now. Tina encourages him, assuring him that with his help everything will work out. Kanata is pleasantly surprised by her confidence and wishes he had the same faith in himself. Tina decides to tell Kanata the magic words. Kanata is very surprised. She tells him that even if he makes a mistake and the whole world hates him or turns its back on him, she'll always be there for him, so he shouldn't be afraid to make mistakes. It doesn't matter to her whether he's good, brave, or even the biggest coward. She will accept and protect Kanata no matter what. He looks at Tina in surprise. Smiling shyly, she asks whether her words brought any relief. Her words really supported him and gave him confidence. He tells her it was a true miracle. Tina is happy and smiles at the boy. Suddenly, a loud roar and people shouting can be heard in the distance. Caddies arrived and settled in the mountains. The heroes stare in amazement at the massive earth dragon. Canada calls on Tamaki to start guiding the dragon with a drone. The girl reacts quickly and starts clicking the computer mouse rapidly. The drone heads straight for the dragon, and Kanata grows more anxious because Caddies is much bigger than he expected. Tamaki cheerfully pops out of the hatch and says the dragon chased the drone, so he is waiting for praise. The girl accepts the challenge, even though the dragon is really huge and her knees are already shaking. Tina reassures her and promises it will be fine. The boy answers hesitantly, which probably frightens Tamaki. Kanata thinks the journal should not be much smaller than the giant monster. He hopes he can withstand the impact. The dragon rushes toward the shop. The heroes hold tight to the rope as Kanata orders everyone to prepare for a collision. Caddies crashes into a building. A dull thud is heard. The boys hold on to the magazine with all their might. Canada stands up and checks that everyone is okay. They got through this stage, but it's not over. They grab fire extinguishers and move on. The three heroes are determined. They rush toward the dragon, carrying fire extinguishers. The boy orders them to aim straight. The dragon spots the heroes, and they are terrified. The dragon tries to protect its eyes. Its outer shell is strong, but inside everything is delicate. The boy decides to stare straight at Caddies' eyes and mouth so he can dare to mock you. Frightened, the girl wants to go back to her parents but still steps forward into the fight. He opened a shop here to distract Caddies. They built the structure as a defense to stop an attack on the city and protect it from destruction. The plan was to force Caddies to retreat, then attack again. Kadna confidently throws fire extinguishers at the dragon until it starts to weaken. Jamming a fire extinguisher into his mouth, he sends Tamaki into a panic. Even this does not make the dragon retreat, and the man begins to worry. He really wanted to distract the monster from the store for at least a moment, so he turned to the girl to ask for her fire extinguisher, but she was already gone. Confused, he looks for the girl, but only Tina is nearby. While asking the girl where Tamaki is, he suddenly notices the building's ruined wall. Kadna is too afraid to even imagine that a girl could fall. The dragon suddenly roars and spits all the fire extinguishers straight at the hero. Terrified, she screams and calls Tamaki for help. A creature appears out of nowhere and attacks, catching the dark-haired boy off guard. A spear suddenly flies into the creature's head and pierces right through it. The protagonist sees it but doesn't know who did it. Someone behind him starts teasing, saying she did it. The hero realizes it's Tamaki, turns around but can't see where she is. Using her assassin skills, she knocked the earth dragon's eyes out with a spear. The boy realizes he cannot see her because of her ability and quietly admits she made him worry. The girl behind is relieved that Tamaki is okay. Tamaki from the void says she is one of the heroes. It was very easy for her. The protagonist praises her, but another girl appears behind him and says she is the real Tamaki. Two cylinders in the dragon's mouth start to crack as it bites them, and the dragon growls sharply. The hero realizes the dragon is heading for the shop, and that's actually good. Before it bursts in, both girls must leave quickly and head for town, and one of them agrees with him and climbs down the rope to retreat. Tamaki turns to the boy and says she will count on him from now on. The other girl asks him to be careful, and the protagonist smiles confidently, telling them not to worry and to leave everything to him. The protagonist stepped down and stood bravely in front of the dragon to challenge it, and the dragon roared, blowing puffs of smoke from its mouth. The boy looks at his enemy and knows he must lure him all the way to the end. Then the dragon flies up to the building, and the hero asks it to come closer. When the dragon breaks a chunk off the shop, the boy seizes the moment and orders the shop to disappear. Suddenly, the building the dragon was attacking disappears, leaving the dragon stunned. The hero is happy to see that everything worked out, and the dragon fell into the hole left by the shop. The boy realizes the traps they set stopped Caddies, remembers being told the preparations were complete, and sees the dragon lying powerless in the pit. The protagonist notices that whenever he thinks of something, a shop appears right beside him, but each time everything trembles a little and a cloud of dust rises, because a gap forms under the shop that someone could fall into. He imagines what will happen if he does it in midair. Before, he thought he'd rarely get a chance to use a move that needs a height difference, but now everything lines up. Seeing the rope twitch, he knows it's the signal. At his signal, everyone pulls the rope together, lifting the main character up as if in an elevator. The hero leaps from the elevator straight at the dragon. Shouting, he tells the dragon to try to swallow him. The man glares angrily at his enemy. The hero shouts "store," and a building appears directly above the dragon, falling straight onto it. The dragon just watches the building fall. The next moment, the shop lands right on the dragon, and the main character is still in midair. The dragon roars and coughs up blood as the hero lands. Everyone watches in amazement and says that neither swords nor even magic could defeat him before, but this worked. He has enormous destructive power. The man says confidently that this dragon is very old and that its name suits him perfectly. With a serious look, the hero sees the dragon is still trying to rise after that blow. The dragon pulls up the front of its body and growls, while the boy lies on the ground before it. The hero springs up and runs to the elevator, realizing it was expected because a real ancient dragon stands before him that cannot be killed with one blow, and the boy is lifted up. Standing with a serious expression, he decides to act differently. The man tells everyone to step back, holds a rope, and the hero hovers in the air and orders the shop to disappear. Then the main character jumps down and calls the store again to finally finish off this dragon. Knowing what to do, he gets back to work. Determined to destroy the dragon, the protagonist returns to the shop to use its endless options and keeps attacking the dragon until it is completely destroyed. The dragon roars and drops face first to the ground. Nearby, the boy lands and breathes hard, trying to catch his breath in front of the defeated enemy. The hero wonders whether he has defeated the dragon, but suddenly its sharp-clawed paw appears right in front of him, almost touching the boy. Reacting in time, he steps back quickly and looks at the barely alive dragon. He knows that if he relaxes even a little, Caddies will get out at once, and then everyone will be in danger. The dragon moves its paw. The protagonist struggles to breathe and can barely move. Then a thought hits him. Everything blurs before his eyes, and he wonders whether his magic has run out and whether magic is even needed to use the shop. He curses and realizes the problem may just be a lack of physical activity. The young man looks really unwell. People above watch in surprise as the protagonist suddenly trips and starts to fall. He falls, turns to the boys, and both girls happily call Kanata's name, while the main character apologizes to them in his head and then loses consciousness. The main character remembers how everything around him was destroyed, and a small boy sat beside his mother, crying and begging her to wake up, but she could no longer respond. The main character suddenly felt worried, and then someone spoke to him, which surprised him deeply. Kenanak sees two girls in front of him, clearly worried about the boy. They are Tamaki and Tina, and he recognizes them. Tina asks the boy what happened to Caddies. Kanata suddenly tries to stand up but cannot. Tamaki quickly tells him to calm down and not get up so suddenly because he needs to rest. Tina puts her hand on the boy's shoulder to get his attention. She tells him he did it. He looks at the defeated dragon lying in the pit. Tina, with tears in her eyes, says it is truly incredible. People shout with joy that George defeated the dragon from Caddies. Everyone immediately cheers and raises their hands. Both girls suddenly hug the young man. They are happy that everything worked out and ended well. The sun shone brightly as the long-standing problems with the outer wall finally ended, and the people on top celebrated their victory. The hero lifts his head and smiles, knowing the ancient earth dragon Caddies has been defeated. A few days after the hero defeated Caddies, the town was alive with celebration. Kadna rejoiced at the victory, and bright flags decorated the streets. Everyone is at the celebration now, both those who live in the city and those who live outside it. They have all come out of their homes to drink together and greet each other. Unfortunately, the main character was exhausted and lying in bed after sleeping for days in his 24-hour shop, and the t-shirts only appeared on the 4th level. The main character remembered another disappointment. Through tears, he noticed that for some reason his level had not increased. After beating Caddies, he was still at level 24. He wonders if killing him in the store is the reason, although he had thought about it more than once. When he was just working in the business, his level also rose. The hero shows his shop stocked with hands, wings, legs, and weapons, and he hopes more chances to fight back will come soon. One girl happily asks the main character to check how much they received in town, saying they can now set up their whole life. The other girl suggests the boy eat more so he becomes stronger. The protagonist thinks it would be cool to win the title for the saddest column, when a girl suddenly slaps him in the face with a piece of bread, and someone offers him food, while another girl asks him not to eat it. A few days later, the main character finally returned to work. A smiling man told him it was thanks to him that the man had earned a lot of money, and sincerely thanked the young man. The man says the store is still doing well. Promising to help, he takes the box from the young man. People around call him a hero. Everyone greets him and is happy he has finally returned. The young man thanks the man. He sees everyone is in good spirits. Very grateful for all they've done for him, he wants to thank them somehow. Surprised, the man asks the boy whether he is really serious. A man loudly demands that the protagonist give him all of Caddies. The protagonist, stunned, agrees and says the man can take it if he really wants. Praising the boy as the best, the man hugs him. Next, he orders everyone to get to work. They will sell everything they took from the noble rogues and charge a huge price for it. The main character realizes this is a good entrepreneurial instinct. Thanks to him, the boss threw them a truly wonderful party. The protagonist remembers how tasty the food was and thinks he enjoyed everything back then. It was really great. Someone calls to the boy. He turns, wondering what happened this time. A smooth man approaches and calls him the hero of the 24-hour Mazan. The man says it is a great honor to meet the boy while a man in glasses stands behind him. The girl is confused and surprised that this is her father and that he is even from Donetsk. A man hopes his ungrateful daughter will not interfere with his plans. The main character says in surprise that Tina actually always helps him. The man asks if that is true. He tells his daughter she is lucky to have a father like him. The main character is surprised that he really is her father. The man asks if this is her way of thanking him for all he has done. A man asks a young man if he would marry his daughter. The girl and the main character are surprised, and someone in the back loudly says he definitely does not agree. She turns to her father and says he is scaring customers and could hurt the business. A woman behind asks the protagonist if he is Tina's father, and he says yes. A moment later, the girl, looking guilty, apologizes for the inconvenience her father caused, and the boy smiles and says it's nothing, he was just a little surprised. The girl asks Tina if she has been away from home for a long time, and says Tina's father is probably worried, and the protagonist thinks Tamaki simply does not know who he really is. The protagonist isn't sure he cares about his daughter at all. On his last visit, he was supposed to see things clearly so he could take charge of his shop. Tina says it's unlikely this is about her. She suddenly says her family has as many as 46 children and that she is the 23rd. The main character and Tamaki are so surprised they spit out their drinks. Tamaki, horrified, notes there are more children in that family than students in their class. They are real aristocrats. The man says they can still talk about what the main character is asking him, about what happened. He tells Kannadi that most likely all the towns around Kadna and the neighboring states have already heard that the hero from the shop beat Caddies, but if this news reaches Grandale, he thinks they can actually do something. The protagonist, looking serious, says they are fully capable. Also, the Kingdom of Grandale has finally started introducing its heroes. Apparently the squad of 4 chosen by the hero, and led by the immortal, captured the eastern cave full of goblins. Kanata wonders whether things have finally started to move now that the first training battle is over, and the man says one swordsman single-handedly wiped out all the swamp lizards in the southeast, leaving the main character, and Tina surprised he did it alone. One man says the lizards are far stronger and pose a much more serious threat, and rumors say the heroic swordsman is the main candidate to defeat the Dark Lord. Tamaki smiles and asks whether they mean the swordsman hero Shiori. That's great. The protagonist recognizes the name. She enters the gaming club and is great at first-person shooters. At the club he noticed she usually keeps to herself and doesn't like playing on a team. Outside the game she is also a loner. The man asks when other countries will learn about the kingdom's brave hero's achievements. If everyone finds out he defeated the legendary dragon others were too afraid to approach, all the attention will fall on him, and he does not want that because for Grandale it is a real problem, and asking him what's funny about it is pointless. At first the main character is silent, then tells Zariel he has one request. Zariel agrees and promises to do whatever he asks. Night falls, a group of riders stands on a cliff, looking ahead. A drone flies over them. The main character watches them on his computer and realizes they arrived much earlier than he expected. The protagonist recalls how he used the information, and together with Zero, told Grandale where the hero from the shop was, and now he is on the outskirts of the city and they ask whether he plans to leave the city. Tamaki asks him why with curiosity. The boy admits he really likes it here and does not want to leave, but people are searching for him. If the pursuers from Grandale find him here, they could destroy the whole town. The protagonist does not want to drag the residents into trouble, especially now that the threat of an attack by the Caddies has passed and everyone is listening carefully to the boy. Tamaki says sadly that it's a shame because she had become friends with everyone. The boy agrees with her and looks upset. Now that the city gates are open, more food will reach the outskirts, and the gap between rich and poor will finally narrow. He still plans to give the store's goods to everyone, since this might finally be useful. Tina smiles, sure the residents of the outer wall will sigh with relief. The protagonist says Grandale will no longer need the town once he leaves, and if someone takes the townspeople hostage, it could become a serious problem, but the man tells the boy not to worry about it. He says that if needed they won't involve locals during dangerous times, and that for the money they can just hire mercenaries from the interior, which will keep the city safe, and the man thanks him. The riders gallop on and the girls look back. Kanata knows that if he can delay the pursuers and give Tina and Tamaki time to reach the hill, then even if the enemy outnumber them, only he can do it. Watching the group in front of the store through the drone, he realizes Mrs. Crusades and the heroes are not there, so there will be no negotiations and they have come specifically for him. Suddenly the hero sees several robed figures drawing magic circles and launching attacks from them, and is surprised to realize it is real magic. Contrary to their expectations, the magic bolts hit a barrier as they reach the shop and do no damage. Taken aback by this turn of events, the knights watch as the hero realizes he must hurry, and the fire shutters with magical protection work very well, leaving them puzzled because someone told them about the shop before it was rebuilt. A knight points his sword forward and tells everyone not to panic or stand still, insisting they must get him out of this strange building as soon as possible. He orders everyone to attack, and a wave of knights charges straight at the building, trying to damage it. The protagonist hears heavy pounding on the door and thinks there are so many of them that the usual fire extinguisher smoke might not be enough to escape, so he curses Grandale, and someone hooks a grappling hook over the roof edge. Several knights climb onto the roof using ropes, and the hero wonders why so many people have gathered for him. One night something is about to hit from above, and the main character notices it and realizes that things are very bad. The girls stand on a cliff, gazing ahead in awe. They worry about Kanata and wonder if he will be all right. Tamaki is sure he will be fine, since he beat Kata himself. The protagonist notices night falling over the building again and knows it's a bad sign. He holds a fire extinguisher firmly. Then the system reports that the convenience store hero's level has increased. The boy brightened when he realized he had gained experience from the knights, which would only help him. Smiling, he raises his hand and decides to check his status. All his information is in his status. The only skill he has is a level 5 shop. His stats are Endurance 8, Strength 8, Agility 6, Magic 0, Luck 8. He has not mastered any spell or skill. His title is Legendary Slayer of Earth Dragons. At first, the main character was happy to see lunch boxes and a microwave. It was really great, but then he noticed something and was stunned. Canada sits at his computer and notices items that are not usually found in a store. He thinks it is a mistake. The drones and machines with magical barriers look very strange. The protagonist decides to act, focuses on clicking and moving the mouse, clicks the icon with 5 Gatling guns, and realizes now is not the time to hesitate and must try this option. 2 5-barrel automatic Gatling guns suddenly appear on the building's roof with a characteristic clatter. The knights on the roof stare at them in surprise. They are meant to stop intruders from entering the building. The protagonist watches in shock and asks whether this is really acceptable, since a Gatling gun is far too powerful for a world of swords and magic where such a weapon should not exist, and he wonders how this could be possible. The Impec machine gun shows it's empty. Canada hesitates, unsure if he read it right, and decides to check. When the system asks to enable automatic mode, Canada agrees and clicks the mouse button. Machine guns on the roof suddenly open fire and quickly take out several knights. One of the horses panics at the unexpected attack. After the attack, the knights lie on the ground, alive but drained and groaning in pain. The hero smiles, relieved that his power does not kill and can be used without fear. He moves in to take a closer look and is suddenly surprised for some reason. The protagonist notices an icon on his computer showing the shop's changing rotation, clicks it while trying to understand it, and later that night on the roof, he notices movement below and wonders what is happening there this time. The store building suddenly starts spinning, and the knights on the roof can't hold on and fall, while the people around stand stunned, watching the strange sight. One of their comrades from the night watch suddenly screams and falls from the roof right in front of them. The protagonist smiles and says he thought nothing could surprise him anymore, but this is funny. He laughs and is amazed the magazine can even spin. He smiles again and decides to use the machine gun again, and the gun starts to rotate. Machine guns on the roof fire all night near the shop. Some try to flee and others fall to the ground. The knights ask what kind of building it is. No one warned them and they do not know how to act. One of the knights, the chief commander, tells everyone that Lord Drake himself, the Prime Minister of Grandale, assigned them this mission, so they should not think they can come back with nothing and must complete it without fear. There is no point in wondering who Drake is. With them demoralized, the boy sees a chance to escape. He presses a key on the computer. The store will make their escape plan work, so he decides to try one more thing. Hinata activates drones equipped to spray smoke. Several drones fly out right over the store and begin spraying smoke at the bandits. The thick smoke makes them choke and cough. Then the protagonist steps out of the building, sees smoke ahead, and covers his mouth and nose with his hand to avoid breathing it in. Realizing this is the best time to escape, he slips away while the knights choke on the smoke and ends up in the forest. His friends are standing right in front of the boy, happy he came and calling him a hero. The exhausted protagonist tells Tamaki she should have gone on without him. A man drapes a robe over the young man. She says she thought it over and realized he cannot ride and would not manage alone, and that if needed she can slip through unnoticed. The girl gets on the horse first and asks the boy to hurry, but he says he's barely moving, and Ziriel tells them to hurry. The protagonist and Tamaki smile at the man, and Kanata sincerely thanks him for his help. Zeriel winks, thanks the man who gave him the chance to earn so much, and says they'll meet again if they're still alive. The man wishes them luck as the horse bolts, making Tamaki and Kanata startle. The boy looks back, smiles, thanks them, and asks them to pass on his greetings to everyone in town. The girl watches the road, frightened. The man watches them a moment longer and waves, his white horse standing beside him. A few hours before the legendary Earth Dragon Caddies was destroyed in the kingdom of Grandale during the day. In the Great Hall, a girl thanks someone for coming from far away in the west and smiles as she asks how she can help. Kneeling before her, the young man reports the Western Alliance is now in even greater danger from the Demon Lord's army. Karl Gonstener is an envoy from Carteros, one of the Western Alliance's nations. The boy says they're barely standing, and that it was recently confirmed that demons really exist, are intelligent, and can control magic. Then the knights exchange glances, someone coughs, and everyone suddenly stands up. Smiling, she promises they will generously support their country with soldiers and supplies, and will send 10,000 troops to the expeditionary force as soon as possible. Carlgan is surprised by the number and admits the rumors about her greatness were true, and the girl promises to do everything she can to fulfill the duties of a great nation and fight the Demon King together. But there is one detail. A boy with a serious expression asks the girl if their newly summoned heroes can help them. Someone beside the girl says that, unfortunately, the heroes from another world cannot hold back the Demon Lord's army. A blonde young man sits smiling and says they will soon be able to show what they can do. The girl agrees and says everything is correct. She asks him to wait a bit because the guy is looking at something. A young man sits thinking that in recent years she lost both parents to mysterious illnesses, and though still young she has already inherited the throne. Her political skills are highly valued in the West, and that upsets him. A fair-haired boy says that's it. Let him call his rulers. Politely and respectfully, the boy asks who he is. He then apologizes for not introducing himself yet. A young man says he was summoned from another world 6 months ago. Glad to introduce himself, he gives his name as Kuramachi Yudo and says he is a hero with the power of immortality. Another boy watches him in surprise. Karglin continues to kneel and asks Yudo whether he is truly a brave warrior from another world who can forgive him for his rudeness. Yudo smiles and says that even if it's a military secret, his team of chosen heroes has already destroyed the Eastern Goblin camp and the Lizard Folk settlement, and he remembers those moments clearly. The day they've been waiting for is almost here. Karlgan, stunned, says he can hardly believe it. Victory over the lizards is a real feat. Confident that they can prepare a solid report for the 3 countries, Carlton thanks everyone for their attention, then stands and bows. The boy leaves the room, and the girl asks Yudo if he is all right. Yudo stands and says he is fine. Yudo thinks this noisy Western coalition needs at least some report on the heroes. Yudo gently touches her chin and tells her not to worry. If she listens, everything will be fine. She shyly touches his hand and agrees to do exactly as he says. Suddenly they're interrupted when a stranger enters the hall and addresses His Majesty Kuramoto Yudo. An older man in a hat says he wants to tell them something. The girl is surprised because it's Prime Minister Drake. Yudo calmly asks the man what happened. He reports they learned about a hero from another world who calls himself the grocery store hero and managed to defeat the legendary Earth Dragon in the Western Autonomous region of Kadna. The girl from Yudo is very surprised. According to her, the hero from the shop could not have killed the dragon because that is simply impossible. Excitedly, the girl asks whether he himself claimed to be a villain who did evil while posing as a hero and wonders why people treated him so cruelly. She had heard he suffered terribly and still regrets it. She turns to Yudo and asks him to confirm whether he killed the Earth Dragon, since only a villain would do that. Yudo tells her to calm down and says it's probably not that simple. It could be false information meant to trick them. A woman shouts to the Prime Minister that a search team must be sent to Kadna immediately because it is very important, but before she can finish, Yudo reaches out to her, orders her to sleep, and she begins to lose consciousness. After that, the girl falls asleep on her throne. Sighing, the young man says people who lack self-control are a danger to the country. He thinks she is naive and doesn't see that sometimes lying is necessary. She is still very young. The Prime Minister asks Judas if he sedated her again because he is also a bad person, but Judas does not react and asks the man if that is true. All the merchants in Kadna are talking about the shop's hero, he says, so there is no doubt about it. Yudo smiles and asks how he managed that with only a shop and no combat skills. He can't picture this legendary Earth Dragon, but he's sure the deputy head, also one of the chosen, stood beside it and helped. Tamaki comes to mind. Now living on the edge of town, she could confirm the truth to them, and they could easily get rid of her. They would only need to say some monster killed her and tell the queen their story was true. A man asks the Prime Minister to send an assault team right away, and the Prime Minister agrees. He accepts the order. The system confirms he is Drake. The Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Grandale, called the Usurper, destroyed the crusade, killed the girl's parents with magic, made a young girl heir to the throne, and is trying to claim all the kingdom's achievements. Yuda smiles, convinced he finally has a real reason to be called a usurper and a useful figure in the game. His skills have swayed the queen, making it easy to take control. Powerful magic for testing and evaluation is also at his command. Drake asks Yudo about the assassin's heroine, but Yudo tells him not to worry and says he'll handle it. Unlike the hapless hero from the store, she will be easy to find. Someone is hiding behind a column. In this situation, the man apologizes. With a serious look, Yudo stares at the column and says it's wrong to eavesdrop, then adds that she's here, Shiori. Shiori steps out from behind the column and stands in front of the boy with a sword on her back. The woman admits she just arrived and didn't hear anything. The man approaches too. With a slight smile, she asks if he's worried she might have overheard something she shouldn't. A boy laughs and admits he doesn't care, saying the girl could be more accommodating since they're classmates, and he asks if that's really true, but the girl, annoyed, apologizes because she doesn't care either. She steps in front of him and says he has no plans to go against their main mission. Yudo answers that as leader he of course puts everyone's safety above all else. They even defeated the Dark Lord and made it home safely. The boy can't believe it and laughs, but they tell him it is a true miracle because everyone is alive and well, everything ended well, and it really is incredible. The girl smiles and says they can strike back, unlike the others. Utica smiles and replies that as the country's hero he cannot disobey orders and asks her to avoid selfish acts from now on. She sighs in displeasure. She asks Yudo what level the chosen group is at now. Yudo says everyone is already at level 3 and has become stronger, and she understands. Showing all her fingers, the girl says they are now at level 5, so working alone will be much more effective. The boy stands confused as she walks away, announcing the legendary Earth Dragon has been defeated. Suddenly the girl lit up and said happily that the legendary Earth Dragon sounds like a fascinating adventure. Eager to join, she is curious about his current level. It would be a shame if he got ahead of her. She walks on happily, wondering if she might meet him along the way. 2 night watch soldiers step out from around the corner. She realizes he is already heading to Kadna. When they greet her and thank her for her work, she puts on a serious face. The queen opens her eyes and looks ahead. Yudo holds her chin and asks if she is all right. She then asks whether he managed to sleep and suddenly remembers the shop's hero she must find to learn what happened. Yudo asks her to listen carefully. He tells the girl that the shop's hero was really an evil figure who served a dark lord and harmed the city, so she drove him out of the kingdom. The girl looks at him in surprise, and he asks if it is true. The girl suddenly smiles and agrees with him. He realizes he needs to boost his charm a little to get a stronger reaction. That will take time, so he tries again, and with a wry smile, turns to the queen to ask if he has understood correctly. Several containers of tasty, ready-made foods sit on the table. The main character and 2 girls happily press their hands together and wish each other a good meal. She tells him that a boxed yakiniku lunch is the best thing. He never thought he would get to enjoy a hot boxed meal in another world. It's nothing like before, when he only ate a couple of servings with Gary and tea. Tamaki is eating and says he wants to go to the store. The boy tells the girl he doesn't really need her. About 5 days have passed since they left the town of Kadna. They are heading west, beyond the reach of Grandale's authority. They ride on horseback. Food, clothing, and shelter are available right in the store, so they do not stop in towns or leave any trace of their travels, and the main character smiles and says it is very convenient. The protagonist realizes his shop has already reached level 5 and he now has weapons. His idea of the perfect shop has completely changed. Such a turn of events was hard to predict, but it couldn't be helped. Most importantly, he became stronger. Many different goods and items were added. There is a lot overall. Tamaki picks something up while the other girl examines an item and turns to Kinata. Admitting she does not know how to put this underwear on correctly, she asks him to explain, then shyly looks back as Tamaki appears behind, takes her arm and says she will explain everything herself. Also, more interesting things appeared for both them and those who had come from another world. Everyone stared at a single box in surprise. For example, magazines, manga, books, and photo collections began to appear here as if from another world, so everything people read in the modern world showed up here too. Only one type of book could be ordered per day, and some titles appeared at random. The boy felt disappointed realizing that collecting the whole set could take years. Tamaki asks the boy in surprise if this really is everything from their world because something feels wrong. The protagonist replies that the contents look similar, but it might be a parallel world. With a serious expression, he realizes there is no information about the disappearance of their class. Surprised, Tina asks about the amazing tech, shops, cinemas, gaming consoles, household appliances, and amusement parks she has never seen, and because she is happy, everything is fine. Tina looks surprised at one of the magazines and says the book about women in strange poses is interesting too. Good recommendations. Tamaki scolds the guy for ordering it. That photo collection from another world was banned from day one. If they keep going, they will enter the territory of the Union of 3 Western Kingdoms. The girls ask again what this union is. Tina smiles and says these countries are always under threat from the Dark Lord's army, so they promise to help each other. This territory is closer to the front than Grandale to the east. But to get there, you will have to cross a gorge called the Dark Lord's Abyss. The main character is very surprised when he hears that. The protagonist asks whether this is about a castle, because he is not ready for that yet. Tamaki replies that it is just a name, and he still needs to sort it out. Tina smiles and says that, as Tamaki said, the current Dark Lord's castle really stands on his lands, farther west of the union of the three countries. The boy asks Tamaki not to get arrogant. The girl looks very pleased. Legend says the Dark Lord's Gorge was a vault and burial place for powerful monsters that once served the Dark Lord who ruled the whole world. Moreover, the Dark Lord's curse means anyone who has fallen to the bottom of the rift can no longer make any choices, and this deeply frightens the main character Tamaki. Tina tells him it applies to monsters too, but merchants often use safe roads so he can relax, and the boy sighs with relief and admits that it is really reassuring. Thoughtfully, he asks whether another will appear if they defeat the current Dark Lord. Tamaki says that could happen, of course, but there is nothing to be done. Tina suddenly grows sadder at those words. Then she admits to her friends she has a hunch about something, though she's not sure and has no evidence. She tells them there is a book in this world called Forbidden Knowledge, but it is very hard to find. The main character and Tamaki are surprised by the news. Tina says people claim the church burned most of these banned books, so no one could read them anymore. As a child, she accidentally found a forbidden book in Caddies' underground library. Driven by curiosity, she picked it up and began to read. The contents shocked her. Tina, her face full of worry, says the Dark Lord who appeared in this world was created by heroes summoned from another world. The main character and Tamaki cannot believe it and are stunned by the news. Tamaki asks excitedly whether this means they will now become Dark Lords. The boy explains that to defeat Dark Lords they summon heroes from another world, and those heroes become the new lords, so the cycle repeats. The girl with her eyes closed says it is now impossible to confirm these claims, but people once said that among heroes summoned from other worlds, those with special powers eventually become Dark Lords. Long ago people knew this, so if someone with those abilities came up during the hero selection, others immediately tried to get rid of them. Tamaki smiles and asks whether they are okay and whether anyone is bothering them. The protagonist wonders about a hero who could become a Dark Lord. Only Yudo Modi comes to mind, and imagining the man, he knows he will not be the last ruler. Then the protagonist asks Tina what was written about these abilities and how they should turn out. The girl says that unfortunately this section was damaged, but the text suggests it only affects special abilities that differ from other heroes' skills, and it is clear she is very upset about it. The main character says his shop is special too, and if that makes sense, there is clearly no Dark Lord to be seen here. He believes the protective measures are dangerous, of course, but they are not what we need at all. Tamaki suddenly remembers and says there are hot meals and tasty sweets that help the people on the outer wall. Smiling, the main character tells the girl she is too cheerful and clumsy to be a real killer, and she, surprised, asks if he could just praise her. Tina gives the girl a warm hug and says Tamaki is a sweet, kind hero she loves very much. The main character watches with displeasure, and the boy asks Tina for permission to ask one more question, and she agrees. The protagonist asks the girl if this hero really comes from another world. After defeating the Overlord, he must return home. The girl considers Kanada's question thoughtfully. Anxious, the girl says the legends are silent about what happened next. According to one version, some remain in this world for the rest of their lives, simply living as ordinary people. This shows that people with special abilities descended from heroes are very rare in the world. It represents a newborn child. The heroine realizes the words and remembers the girl, thinking that if it's true then maybe everything Crusade said was true. Kanada tells Tina that Queen Grandale said a powerful magic can send the heroes back to their world. Tina asks again about the queen, admits she knows nothing about her, and apologizes. Yet Grandale is a respected kingdom that has held hero summoning ceremonies since ancient times, so she may have gained some secret magic from another world that others do not even suspect. The heroine says that, as she already mentioned, they will have to defeat the Dark Lord in any case. Tamaki admits that's the whole story and that she's a little scared, and suddenly Tina addresses Kanada and Tamaki at the same time. Worried, the girl looks at her two friends and asks whether, if they defeat the Dark Lord, they will both return to their home world. Her friends are surprised by the question. Suddenly, the protagonist remembers he wanted to go home, but at that moment the girl covers his mouth with both hands. Suddenly she lowers her hands, hugs herself, and apologizes to the two people sitting next to her. She asks whether that is why they are moving forward now. First, they need to head toward an alliance of 3 Western countries. The protagonist and Tamaki watch the girl closely. Then it's time to get ready to leave, and Tamaki decides to help Tina while the protagonist drifts into his own thoughts. The protagonist becomes curious about what earlier characters thought in those important moments, and when it is time to make a choice, he looks up at the sky. At last they moved on, and after several weeks of travel, they reached the Dark Lord's Gorge, where a signpost stood. The whole squad is stunned that they can't see the bottom of the chasm at all. It's frightening to imagine demons down there. These are the same demons who served the Dark Lord long ago and somehow survived. They're as huge as the Caddies, maybe even larger. The protagonist thinks the Dark Lord who once controlled him was probably a cool guy, even cooler than Caddies. He asks Tina how anyone could have defeated him. Tina says the old books make no mention of it, so she's also curious to find out how it happened. The main character says he heard something like that in hero training, then turns and finds Tamaki and her horse gone and asks where she went, shocked by her disappearance. Tina tells him that, as far as she remembers, Tamaki was going to go scouting. She had warned Tamaki to be careful, but the boy ignored it and now asks Tina if she is serious. Annoyed, the heroine thinks she's been acting on her own for a long time, and he immediately remembers how she kept leaving him and their friend for a cat or for food. The young man tells Tina he'll go look for her and that she should rest for now. She agrees and asks them to be careful, and he nods to the girl who stayed with the horse. Moving forward along the gorge, the main character looks around and suddenly spots something. He notices the silhouette and realizes it's her, relieved she hasn't moved far from them, and then something suddenly shocks him. The protagonist is bewildered watching a girl cry, scream, and pound at an invisible wall, while someone laughs and tells him he is alive, and he simply stands there watching in silence. 2 other people stand beside the girl trapped in a cone-shaped crystal. The one on the right smiles at Kanadi, says they haven't seen each other in a long time, and calls him the guy from the store. The main character freezes when he recognizes Kanamori and Natori Mitsuki standing before him. The girl with glasses is a shield mage and looks very serious. Hinata thinks she's a quiet, simple girl in glasses, but she's actually a stalker who adores Kuramachi and constantly watches him from around the corner. They both glare at the boy, and he realizes they are just 2 modest, obedient assistants wearing glasses, mere servants, and even Mitsuki is with them. Kanamori says the protective field's wide coverage can locate a person or group, and the protective barrier can both isolate them and suppress their abilities. He asks the protagonist if that surprises him. Mitsuki really starts to get angry at the guy. Tamaki sits withdrawn and does not understand what is happening between them. The protagonist realizes Mitsuki is angry and that her ability is taking effect. Kanamori says they have already captured the vice president. Tamaki is very worried about this. Kanamori claims he is Grandale's biggest criminal. He vows Kanata will answer for her actions. Kanamori sneers and points at the protagonist. Outraged, the main character shouts that he was wrongly accused. The other man replies sarcastically that he's so scared and that all criminals say that. The main character asks what kind of justice it is when he takes people hostage, and this makes the man even angrier. Kanamori asks the protagonist not to sink under the water pressure. If he can hold on and win, the girl who was locked up might be freed. The protagonist thinks over the offer. Kanamori then attacks the hero, using a dark stream of water as a massive wave rushes toward them. Seated, Tina remembers her friends and all the moments they shared. If they defeat the Dark Lord, Tina fears she will have to say goodbye to both of them. Beside Tina, her horse calmly chews something. A sudden noise that sounds like water makes the girl even more worried about Canada and Tamaki. A sudden rumble hits, and the hero's enemies watch in disbelief as the main character's store appears right in front of them, leaving everyone speechless. Water rushes into the shop and simply spreads out to the sides, not touching the main character at all. A man in glasses angrily asks Kanata if he used his store as a shield. The protagonist smiles and apologizes to Kanamori, saying he's not the same as before. He stands with his hand raised. Amori freezes and gets angry. Tamaki sees it and enjoys his victory. The boy with glasses says it annoys him, and the main character can't understand what's happening. Kanamori angrily raises her hand and says she can't look at that smug face. That guy doesn't even understand what he's about to do. Suddenly Kanamori freezes, silent and motionless, and the protagonist stands up and covers himself with his hands. Then everyone goes quiet for a moment. The main character watches closely. Suddenly Kanamori starts coughing hard and writhing in pain. He falls to his knees. The girl beside him looks at him in surprise, and Kinata asks what happened. A man in glasses stomps angrily and accuses the protagonist of making it hard for him to breathe. The protagonist is surprised because he did nothing. Someone turns to Kanata and Tamaki, and the man turns back to them. Tina appears, looking at the main character with admiration. The boy is surprised by her arrival, while Kanamori smiles with disgust and also looks at her. He asks them if she is involved in this too. The main character notices water starting to gather near the boy's hand. Kanata shouts at the girl to run, but Kanamori laughs and says it's already too late, and he's about to use the dark water current again. Then the protagonist runs to help the girl. She looks at him in surprise as he reaches out and calls her name. A girl starts to fall from a cliff, and the hero dives in time to catch her midair. After that, they both fall into the chasm, and at first the boy looks down with a serious expression, then suddenly begins to scream. After that, the protagonist begins to remember his past, especially his life in the big city. He remembers a girl in front of him waving and saying good morning, a boy beside her also greeting, and he takes off his headphones to answer them. Tamaki beams at the sign and suggests going there after school. The main character finds himself in his classroom, where everyone cheerfully says good morning to one another. Some chatted with friends, others scrolled through their phones, some read a book, and others lay down and dozed. A tall blonde man enters the classroom and tells everyone the morning meeting will start as soon as the teacher arrives, so he asks them to take their seats, holding something in his hands. Suddenly, everyone in the office feels a strange energy, exchanges surprised looks, and then someone abruptly screams. The main character groans in his sleep and barely opens his eyes, lying on his back and looking up, thinking he dreamed a warm dream from the past. The main character notices a hole in the ceiling and wonders whether the store saved him. He also sees Tina lying unconscious over the hole. Surprised, the guy asks the girl if she's all right. She wakes up and accidentally hits the main character in the face. He says it hurts, and she looks at him, confused. She turns to Kanata and apologizes, saying it was all her fault. The boy winks and says he dragged her into it. The protagonist suddenly hugs the girl, and she is surprised by his action. He tells her he's glad she's okay and admits he's very happy about it. Suddenly, the girl's face becomes calm. She smiles, hugs the boy back, and starts crying with joy. They both stand up, and the girl asks Kanata where they are. The main character looks out the window and sees silhouettes of some monsters at the very bottom of the Valley of Demons. Walking together along the cliffs, they suddenly pass a monster. The main character calls his shop, and Tina looks back anxiously. They descend the stairs together. The main character goes first and says this is his underground hideout. He knew they'd changed things, but inside it still feels almost like a comfortable office. The protagonist stands at the computer, thinking something enormous is outside, so this room is probably safer than the office upstairs. She agrees, and the main character decides to check the area first by tapping the drone icon and flying it a short distance outside the building. Suddenly, they see a huge dragon and are surprised. The girl asks if it is a Caddies. Kanata says no, this creature is much larger than the one he defeated in the city of Kadna, and it is a different color. It may be another type. There isn't just one dragon there, but several, and the boy with a serious expression realizes this is the bottom of the Valley of Demons. Suddenly, the girl spots something, points to the screen to show the boy, and tells him a round creature is moving toward them. The main character is horrified. The creature drove through their store and left nothing behind, and the sight of the completely destroyed shop leaves him stunned. The girl stands there frightened. The girl turns and asks why the storage was left intact, and the main character notices it too. He explains that even when the store was destroyed, there were no vibrations or sounds outside, so this place might exist separate from the store itself. The room they are in now is in total darkness. The protagonist thinks it's a strange mechanism, but is glad it exists, and senses this convenient item is somehow preparing for future problems. She decides to find out how high they can climb. The drone climbs steadily higher, reaching 200 meters, then 300, 400, 1,000, 2,000, and finally 4,000 meters. The main character says it's very deep here. The woman notices a light, then something explodes and the drone footage disappears, leaving them both shocked. The heroine wonders whether this is the same demonic magic seal TK described. TK had said that if someone fell under a demonic curse and ended up at the very bottom, they could not get out. The girl says it's the first time she's seen this, but there appears to be a powerful magical barrier ahead. The protagonist asks in horror if that means they will never be able to get out of the valley, and a message appears on the screen saying there is no signal. Frightened, the main character and the girl run forward. The boy yells to Tina to run faster, and she is terrified by the situation. Kanata yells for Tina to use a lightning dash, and she agrees. Then he summons the shop, which appears right in front of them, and they rush inside as a huge dragon closes in behind them. A girl urges the boy to hurry as the protagonist reaches out his hand. Right after that, the shop's walls fly apart as dragons knock them down. Clawed paw slices through everything in his path. The main character falls down the stairs and smiles because he thinks it's good they are moving to a better home. Tina shouts his name, and the boy lies on the floor thinking it's just some kind of unbelievable game. The dragon stares in surprise at the door it holds in its paw, surprised that no one even mentioned the supplies had been restocked. The main character hears a beep as the system notifies him the shop's level has increased, which greatly surprises him. The same notification appears several times in a row, and the main character is surprised each time. He thought it would happen once, but they keep coming one after another. Tina looks at the guy in surprise. The main character admits his level unexpectedly jumped by 4, and a happy Tina says it's simply wonderful. Curious, she asks the boy if anything new has come up, and the main character raises his hand to check what's going on. A table appears filled with lots of new groceries and household items. The main character is surprised that the selection is almost like a real store. Tina can't hide her surprise. Clearly pleased, the protagonist no longer needs food, and with only a shower stall among his belongings, he steps inside and imagines what the bunker looks like. The guy asks the girl if she will give him a choice in such a hopeless situation, and where that powerful weapon is when even their shop is nearly destroyed. Kanata hid under the table and covered his eyes with his hands. Apologizing to Tina, he said he might not be able to save her because he was losing strength. Tina asked him not to lose his composure. Taking his hand, she smiles and says they could really use a shower. She reassures him and looks happy. He looks at her in surprise and says her name. Happily, she offers him a snack because she brought plenty of tea and sandwiches. The main character asks if there is anything to eat here. She replies that that's exactly why she brought a variety of food. Smiling, Tina suggests they figure out how to get out together and tells him not to panic, saying eating clears the head and brings good ideas, and that even in a pit it's not so bad when they're together, so they'll cheer up and move on, which makes the main character feel a bit awkward. The guy tells the girl she's right, that it's still too early to give up, and thanks her for always supporting him. Tina says she's glad to see him in a good mood again. The girl smiled broadly and admitted they hadn't spent time alone together in a long time, and the boy asked her to repeat what she just said. After that, they lived in seclusion in the underground shelter. She was taking a shower. They had attacked and defended many times, and his rank rose by only one place, which made him very upset.